A game called One Sword had its last moment of life. As a child, a little boy was so addicted that he became number 1 in the global ranking. Like everything in life, one day it all comes to an end. Unfortunately, his favorite game met the same fate. Until one day, he discovers a new game called Swordress. Knowing this, he joins a club to become the best together. A player reflects on the experience of being number 1 in the global ranking while typing. As he sits at his desk, he recalls being familiar with this position since elementary school. For this reason, the boy confirms that he managed to stay at the top of the rankings for an entire year. Focused on the screen, he executes a precise counterattack, being known as a divine player. Soon after, a delivery is announced for Sung Ji-ho outside his building. Upon receiving the package at the door, he briefly thanks the delivery person. Holding the box, he realizes that his era as the best player has come to an end. Suddenly, he stops in the hallway, as that was the day the game's servers were shutting down. Without hesitation, he uses a utility knife to open the box he just received. Inside the package, a message from Theodore, a representative of One Sword, thanked him for being an impeccable player. At the time, the game he dedicated himself to was about online sword combat. Its gameplay was entirely focused on player versus player duels. In it, the character, One Sword, was known for facing multiple opponents at once. Still, the game was so absurdly difficult that in the end, only 302 players remained. On the computer screen, a confirmation appears that the service has been permanently shut down. After all, that was the only game that for some reason his old computer could run. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a streamer begins his broadcast welcoming Swordress fans. He soon puts on his headset and clicks the mouse to prepare. At that moment, an excited audience watches the opening of the main event in a packed stadium. In the broadcast booth, the commentators wonder if Korea will win the trophy again. Next, players Kobe and Luck are announced as they walk to the arena. Then, the captain of the Korean national team, Lee Ji-nae, enters the stage looking in great shape. As the match begins, a foot crushes a plant on the arena floor. Soon, a team of 4 players positions itself for battle, with a masked warrior in front. The moment a warrior unsheathes his blade, an opponent leaps into the air to attack. The adversary advances with his blades, but the warrior blocks the strike at the last second. Shortly after, the blue monster from the team saves her by biting her opponent. With that, the masked warrior faces the enemy as her eye begins to shine. In front of her, the red-haired warrior rises with a fiery aura and stares down his opponent. Then, the two combatants glare at each other from a distance before charging at one another. In the blink of an eye, the arena empties, and a flash indicates a high-speed movement. The blades of both finally clash in an explosive impact at the center of the arena. From afar, someone watches the replay of the red-haired character's defeat on a cell phone screen. Due to the increase in the audience for esports tournaments, public interest in games only grew. Later, elsewhere, Sung Ji-ho on his bike reveals that he hadn't played a single game in 2 years. With headphones on, he reflects that it might be because he was number 1 in One Sword. After that game, no other could spark his interest again. As he arrived at Dano High School, the boy admits that he didn't hate other games. In fact, his gaming potato simply couldn't run any other title. In front of him, a group of students was gathered around a poster on the bulletin board. The poster announced the recruitment for the esports club for a game called Swordress. Intrigued, he approaches the crowd to get a better look at that eye-catching poster. However, as he collides with the crowd, he flies off his bike and decides it's better to focus on his studies. Soon after, in front of the school, an announcement tells students to go pick up their grades. The boy then is left speechless as he looks at the paper with his grades. Next, a classmate questions him about the results, but he just tells him to go away. Unbothered, the student invites him to go together to an internet cafe. With that, the boy declines the invitation, stating that school is for studying, not for fun. The classmate responds that if he had such bad grades, he would prefer to keep playing. At that moment, the discussion heats up, and the student violently grabs him by the hair. Suddenly, he lets go of him and shouts to get someone's attention. The noise wakes up a student who was sleeping, who tells the boy to shut up and leave him alone. At the same time, he recognizes that student as the local delinquent. Startled, the classmate apologizes to Woo Jin and pulls him out of the room. Soon the two stop in the hallway for a moment, in silence. With shining eyes, the classmate grabs him again, insisting that they go to the cafe right away. Shortly after, they arrive in front of the building where the internet cafe was located. As soon as they enter the internet cafe, he starts playing with total focus. However, he quickly loses patience as his friend won't stop asking for healing. At that moment, the classmate yelled at Sung Ji-ho for not knowing where the mid lane was. The bad play made the boy explode, as he remembered the promise he made. Unable to handle the pressure, he stands up and runs to the bathroom in the middle of the match. Alone, the classmate complained that even a gorilla could play better than him. To his surprise, when he looked to the side, his wish came true with a gorilla playing. In the bathroom, Sung Ji-ho washed his face while remembering how bad he was at games. Leaning against the sink, he recalled that there was at least one game he was really good at. In first-person shooter games, he was known for hitting his opponents with a single shot. Even so, he he concluded that he shouldn't have gone to the internet cafe. As he was leaving, a sound of typing coming from one of the booths caught his attention. As he approached, he saw a girl playing. Soon his eyes widened the moment he recognized her playing style. On the screen, a character with a sword was preparing for combat. Then, the character blocked an overhead attack with a precise movement. As an enemy with an energy weapon advanced, the other character defended herself. While the intense battle unfolded, Jiho continued to watch the scene, paralyzed. The speed with which the player controlled her character was impressive. Her hands moved across the keyboard and mouse at a dizzying pace. Even without understanding, he wondered what kind of game that was. With total concentration, the player executed a counterattack at the exact moment. At that instant, the man at the reception desk looked up upon noticing someone's arrival. He quickly stood up upon recognizing the boy named Changhyun. Without hesitation, the newcomer asked for a girl named Ari, informing that her mother was looking for her. Focused on the game, the young girl simply told him to go away without even looking at him. The boy then asked why she was playing instead of going to her private lesson. In response, Hanari said she wasn't just playing or having fun. Then he explained that her mother called him to take her to class. While continuing to play, the girl told him to leave again. Without moving, Changhyun just stood next to her, watching her. Soon after, he closed his eyes for a moment before making a decision. As the boy said it was time to go, Hanari took off her headset and conceded defeat. Meanwhile, Jiho and his friend were heading home at sunset. The classmate then asked if he knew a first-person shooter game with a flashy screen. The boy replied that the game used swords and not guns, but his friend couldn't guess. After describing the combat with jumps and dodges, he finally remembered the name of the game, Swordrush. Soon the classmate explained that Swordrush was released 2 years ago and has a huge learning curve. He then just commented that the game is very difficult and suggested that he watch a video. Upon arriving home, it was already night and the lights in his building were on. Sitting at his desk, the boy prepared to search for a video about the game on the computer. While eating a chocolate bar, Jiho watched a close match between the teams from Korea and the USA. With wide eyes, he was impressed by how the American team's attack was defended. The narrator then praised the national team for their incredible turnaround play. The turnaround in the match happened at such a critical moment that it left him speechless. Thus, the scene reminded him of the times he played and executed his counterattacks. On the screen, a player faced two opponents while both sides prepared their final moves. Soon the lone fighter raised his weapon to prepare for the imminent attack. In the blink of an eye, a massive counterattack was executed, engulfing both opponents in a wave of energy. With the victory, the narrator announced that the championship trophy of the Sword League that year was going to Korea. At that moment, upon seeing the play, he recognized the movement and realized that it was his old technique, one sword. Thus, he remembered his character Spiro, who had defeated numerous strong opponents in the past. To protect the yellow cape worn only by player number 1, he dedicated everything he had. With that, he recalled the countless times he had looked at that screen. At that moment, he stared at the screen of his game, one sword, until the day the servers were shut down. Indignant, he shouted that it was a complete plagiarism and slammed his hand on the table. Even though it was an indie game, he had a pure love for one sword and began typing quickly. Without hesitation, he searched for Swordrush One Sword on the internet. Soon the search results showed a news article about an American company that had bought one sword. The discovery left him completely paralyzed and without reaction. With that, he realized that his old game, One Sword, was back. The next day, he stopped his bike in front of the school's bulletin board. Then he looked closely at the recruitment poster for the esports club. Standing there, he wondered if Swordrush was just a version of One Sword, with better graphics. The boy finally questioned whether he could play again one more time. He soon remembered his character facing multiple enemies, and wished to relive that once more. The desire to wear his yellow cape and be number 1 again took over him. Suddenly, a voice pulled him from his thoughts, and made him look to the side. Standing in front of him was the same girl he had seen playing at the internet cafe. Then, Hanari asked if he was also planning to sign up for the club. Without thinking, Jiho impulsively shouted yes. Soon after, he realized what he had just said out loud. To cover up, he asked if she was already part of the esports club. With that, the young woman asked what his tier was, but he didn't understand the term. With a smile, he admitted that he didn't know what she was talking about. An awkward silence hung between the two for a brief moment. Hanari then pointed to the poster and informed him that the registration method had changed. The new requirement to join the club was to win a one-on-one match against the president. As she walked away, she advised him to at least try the game before signing up. Jiho watched her leave and then turned his face with a determined look. As soon as the classes ended, the classroom began to empty. At that moment, his classmate Jin Young took the opportunity to sleep on his desk. With that, Jiho pulled his chair, causing him to fall to the floor suddenly. As Jin Young got up, the boy urged him to hurry, but he didn't understand anything. Without hesitation, he called his friend to go together to an internet cafe. Suddenly, Shin Woojin appeared and told the boy to get out of the way. The boy apologized and let him pass, while Woojin left the room without looking back. As soon as the delinquent left, Jin-young asked what he wanted to say earlier. Then the boy looked at his friend with a smile on his face before responding. Soon after, Jiho invited him to go to the internet cafe, explaining that he wanted to play again. Still on the floor, the classmate said he had spent the whole night watching Swordrush videos. Then, Jiho explained that there hadn't been a game that suited him before, but now things had changed. With determination, he revealed that his new goal was to reach rank 1 globally in Swordrush. To achieve this, he said he would need Jin-young's help. The boy then asked his friend to teach him everything about Swordrush, but he reacted with mockery. Then, Jin-young looked at his companion seriously and told him to pack his things. At that moment, the door of the internet cafe opened and someone appeared at the entrance. The owner of the place saw Han-ari arriving and greeted her. Soon the future president of the esports club entered the establishment. The man then asked her to take care of the counter, but the girl refused the request to practice. With that, he grabbed her head firmly to intimidate her. Still, Ari pulled away from him and headed towards the game room. She then complained about the owner's petty attitude, as she didn't even play that much for free. Meanwhile, inside the game, a warrior with a red weapon prepared for the attack. From the top of a cliff, a hooded character approached the edge. In a swift movement, the red fighter jumped into the air. The enemy then descended from the skies to attack, while the simple rules of the game were explained. Soon Jin-young explained that the objective was simply to defeat the enemy team, like in any other game. At that moment, Jiho admitted that he had never played other games, leaving his friend completely surprised. In front of a board, Jin-young explained that Swordrush is a 4v4 PvP game where team strategies and individual control determine the outcome. He continued by saying that the maps are smaller, and the movement speed of the characters is faster than in other games. As a result, confrontations become constant, and every hit needs to be defended at the right moment. Finally, the weapons also have durability, which forces players to be even more strategic in combat. Thus, Jin-young concluded that, being a melee combat game, focusing solely on attack or defense requires a lot of reasoning. Like in other games, there are tank, DPS, and healer classes, but he advises against choosing the utility class. Meanwhile, Jiho simply listens to his friend's lengthy explanation in silence. Impatient, he interrupts and asks when they can finally start playing. Then, the two sit in front of the computers while Jin-young creates a room. At that moment, Jiho finds his friend's tone strange, as he suddenly starts to show off. With a smug smile, the boy boasts about his skills and urges the other to join the room quickly. Inside the game, Jin-young's character, a red demon, faces his first opponent. Soon, the hooded warrior positions himself to fight against the giant character in front of him. The red demon then introduces himself as a Manhwa, a god among players. The hooded opponent merely questions whether the game controls are some kind of joke. Even with the different commands he prepared for battle. Unfazed, he stated that this was nothing compared to the game he used to play. With that, Jin-young's expression changed, and he became irritated. The demon charged forward, shouting that his opponent was being overly confident for no reason. At that moment, Jiho began to analyze the proportionality of the movement speed. Next, he calculated the range of the enemy's attack. The enhancement abilities were also taken into account in his analysis. In addition to all this, there was one more crucial factor. An ability icon appeared on the screen indicating a special move. Soon, the hooded warrior's sword glowed as it prepared for impact. The defense energy was activated at the last moment, surprising the demon. Jiho concluded that the execution timing was the most important element of all. With the impact, the opponent's weapon broke, and he was thrown backward. All those mechanics were completely identical to those of his old game. As soon as the hooded character hit an opponent, he used the recoil to propel himself against a wall. With a single sword strike, the warrior unleashed a devastating attack against the enemy. The sudden move left Jin-young paralyzed, his eyes wide with surprise. At that moment, Jiho confirmed that the silhouette of that move was exactly the same as before. A massive explosion occurred in the arena, while silence took over the internet cafe. With that, Jin-young shouted in disbelief, unable to understand what had just happened. Suddenly, Han-ari appeared and asked what he had just done in the match. Jin-young then turned to Jiho and accused him of not being a first-time player. He continued to shout, asking if the boy enjoyed humiliating a silver-ranked player. Finally, noticing Jiho's reaction, he asked if he was crying. With his head down, the boy remembered the game he used to play that had been shut down. The game that had meant everything to him for thousands of hours had disappeared forever. Still, Jiho realized that that game was still alive in some way. A memory of his glory days came to mind, reminding him of the joy he felt. With his face still covered, he finally understood that his old game had returned. At that moment, the young man lifted his head, tears streaming down his face, but happy with the discovery. Meanwhile, Han-ari simply observed the scene, listening to him mention that he could play one sword again. With that, Jin-young continued to look at his friend, not understanding the reason for his exaggerated reaction. Pointing at his colleague, Jiho declared with conviction that he would join the esports club. Then, he revealed with a smile what he would do on recruitment day. Finally, the boy shouted that he would completely crush the president, leaving Han-ari paralyzed by the declaration. At dusk, Hanari walked with her colleague Changhyun, who asked her why she had put up the club poster. Soon after, he pointed out that she was responsible for the esports club, and the young woman simply confirmed the information. Then, the boy expressed his concern that the place might become a refuge for delinquents obsessed with games. However, the girl countered that the teachers might not allow it, but she replied that it wouldn't be a problem. Faced with her response, the boy did not understand where her confidence was coming from. As soon as she put away her phone, the student explained that she did not intend to create just any gaming club, as she needed a team. Next, she added that she required serious people to put her plans into action. Finally, the young woman revealed her big goal of becoming a professional player. The next day, the scene shifted to the school environment. Inside the classroom, Lee Changhyun, Hanari's childhood friend, was focused on writing at his desk. His notes revealed an analysis of how most professional players of Swordrush came from the old one sword. Additionally, the content indicated that a player with the skill to be professional would have no reason not to play Swordrush. Based on this, the young man pondered what his friend would need most to form the team she desired. Soon, he approached an obvious conclusion about her greatest need. The answer was clear: a high-ranking player from the old one sword. Thus, Changhyun concluded that he needed to act so that Ari could become a professional player as soon as possible. With this in mind, he remained seated in silence in the classroom. While reflecting, he thought that, considering the release date of one sword, there should be at least one player their age nearby. The narrative then returns to the internet cafe. At that moment, Sung Jiho and Jin Young had already gone home after declaring war. In the same place, the young woman heard someone asking if she was going to play again. She then approached her classmate, asking why he was so quiet, but he simply replied for her to play, as he wouldn't stop her. Showing no interest, he added that she should take care of the recruitment, and that he was just passing by. The young man sat next to her, admitting that he also did not want to go to private lessons. While typing on the keyboard, Hanari questioned if that would be a new method of playing. Beside her, her friend looked at his phone and asked if there were no high-ranking players among the candidates. With a smile, she replied ironically that it would be like looking for a national representative, confirming that there was no one useful at the moment. Finally, she commented that a boy had appeared who really irritated her. In response, Changhyun laughed, saying it was rare to find someone who didn't irritate her, and mentioned something about one sword. Upon hearing the name of the game, the boy's expression changed completely. Soon after, the young woman replied seriously that they would soon find out what was going to happen. Then, her classmate called her by name and asked if she remembered the boy's face. Determined, Ari declared that she would completely humiliate him during the recruitment, while her imposing avatar was displayed. The scene shifted to Sung Jiho's house that same night. There, the young man opened a cardboard box that had been stored away. With a satisfied smile, he murmured to himself that it was lucky he hadn't thrown it away. Inside the box, Jiho revealed his old and precious strategy notebooks. At the PC cafe, Jin Young advised his friend to prioritize choosing a DPS or tank character for the exam. According to him, each character had unique abilities, and it would be better to familiarize himself with one of them as soon as possible. Curious, Jiho asked which was the fastest character, and his friend replied that it was the utility ones, but he would look for a DPS. Although Jin Young explained that utility characters were not good in duels, the boy excitedly declared that he wanted to play with one of them. In response, his companion punched him on the head. Holding the affected area, the young man heard Jin Young insist that he choose between DPS or tank for the duel, but he replied that it was fine. With a determined look, he stated that he could simply avoid being hit. Such a response left his friend completely impatient. Giving up on the discussion, Jin Young told him to do whatever he wanted, but the boy retorted that he wasn't worried. Soon after, he explained that it was because he had Jin Young himself as a teacher, which made the other bring his hand to his face. Feeling flattered, the friend smiled and urged him to start playing soon. With great enthusiasm, Jiho shouted for them to trust him, as they would become rankers today. Shortly after, the two appeared focused, playing side by side. Back in his room, the young man reflected that Jin Young was right about the characters and that he would need to adapt to the new game. In silence, he remained pondering his next steps. At that moment, he remembered the club president and wondered if she would be there on recruitment day. Soon, he imagined completely crushing the leader and being hailed as the new commander. In his own imagination, the girl praised his skill, and Jiho confessed that he did it just to see her again. With that, the imagined version of Hanari asked him to teach her to play as well. Suddenly, the boy returned to reality and shook his head to dispel the thoughts. With his focus back, he decided that he first needed to find a character similar to the one he used in one sword. Jiho concluded that the game's foundation was the same and that the only place to gather information would be YouTube. Soon after, he sat down in front of the computer to begin his research on Manhwa Outpost. In front of the selection screen, he prepared to study all the characters, even if it meant staying up all night. The narrative then shifts to the next day, in the school environment. At that moment, it was announced that the total number of members needed to establish the club was only 5 people. Jin Young explained to the class that 12 candidates would split into teams of 3 to challenge the president. As soon as the class ended, Ji-ho cheerfully said goodbye, but the teacher asked him to stay in the room. Not understanding the reason, the boy waited in silence. The teacher informed him about a supplementary exam for students with low grades, warning him not to even think about escaping. The news left him paralyzed, while the image of his irritated friend appeared in his mind. Soon after, Jin Young grabbed him, shouting about how bad his grades were, and he tried to defend himself by saying it was only in math. The excited friend yelled that he was going to the internet cafe to register him for the club, telling him to hurry as soon as he finished the test. Even though he was reluctant, Ji-ho had no choice but to agree. Meanwhile, Chan-hyun finished packing his backpack and asked Han-ari if she was already leaving. Indifferently, the girl simply replied for him to go home alone as soon as he was done. The friend then joked, asking if she was going to kill someone, and the young woman confirmed it was something like that. The scene then moves to the front of the PC cafe building. Running, Jin Young arrived breathlessly at the door, announcing his arrival. As soon as he entered, he saw something that surprised him. Inside, the local delinquent, Shin Woo-jin, was loudly complaining about how everything was taking too long. Faced with the scene, Jin Young deduced that it made sense for him to show up since the club's main activity was gaming. With the commotion, the owner of the place shouted for everyone to line up and wait their turn, as there were many students. At that moment, the boy remembered when Han-ari demanded the internet cafe for a day using the coupon he had given her for her birthday. Jin Young then turned around, ignoring the man's complaint about having given the coupon without thinking it through. Soon after, he observed the huge number of candidates crowding the establishment's hallway. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho remained in the classroom, focused on finishing his exam. With the pressure of time, he hurried to solve the questions as quickly as possible. Back at the PC cafe, the first recruitment battle was happening intensely on the screen. Next, the fight continued with a rapid exchange of blows between the two characters. The first defeated candidate slammed his fist on the table, ending the match. Because of this, his opponent taunted him for having no shame in choosing a tank character for a duel. Seeing the scene, the owner of the place shouted in desperation about the boy hitting the table, being restrained by an employee. While watching the broadcast, Jin Young wondered why this was being shown to everyone. Unfazed, Han-ari simply shouted for the next challenger. With a single blow, her character defeated another opponent, and the young woman called for the next one. As soon as the adversary appeared, Ari's avatar charged forward without hesitation to attack. The display of power left Jin Young completely speechless. Soon after, the screen revealed that the girl was a rank 446 player, making victory against her nearly impossible. Next, the explanation showed that the ranker title was only for the top 500 players on the server. The other candidates were in shock, as they had underestimated the school's gaming club. From a distance, the owner of the PC cafe commented that that girl's personality was truly terrible. Adjusting her headphones, the president prepared to challenge whoever came next. With that, she shouted that the next one would face a public execution, calling for the next challenger. In the middle of the crowd, Shin Woo-jin ordered one of the candidates to get out of his way. Pushing past everyone in line, the delinquent complained again that this was taking too long. With a smile, the delinquent finally understood the situation and declared that everyone there, except for the president, was trash. Soon after, the scene returns to the school, in the late afternoon. The teacher entered the classroom and asked if everyone had finished the exam. The other students confirmed that they had, pointing to Sung Ji-ho's empty desk. On the table, the boy left the test with a note apologizing to the teacher. Far from there, Ji-ho was running desperately through the streets, breathless. Exhausted, he stopped and lamented not having any physical stamina left, until he spotted a taxi. The boy then got into the car, still trying to catch his breath from the run. Upon arriving at the PC cafe, he burst through the door and announced that he had arrived. Immediately, Jin Young grabbed him and warned that he was next to play, while his friend asked how many had passed. The colleague revealed that 4 people had been approved, including the delinquent. Upon hearing the news, Ji-ho realized he was the last candidate to attempt the test. Anxious, Jin Young explained that the club president was insane, as she could defeat tanks even while playing as DPS. Soon after, one of the event organizers called out loudly for Sung Ji-ho. Worried, his friend warned him to be careful, but the boy simply asked him to hold his backpack. With a confident look, he declared firmly that he would return with victory. In the game arena, Han-ari's avatar was already waiting for him. At her station, the young woman remained focused, waiting for the match to begin. With a fixed gaze, she thought she was just wondering when he would finally show up. Ji-ho walked towards the computer but stopped when he realized he hadn't even seen who the president was. Noticing the hesitation, Jin Young thought his friend needed to pull himself together. As soon as he sat down and put on the headset, Ji-ho admitted that the girl was indeed very good. The colleague then acknowledged that he also had talent but questioned the choice of a utility character for the test. With that, he suggested that opting for a character focused on attack or defense would be a better choice. Inside the game, the sky darkened, and the character wielded the weapon, signaling the start of the duel. Indifferently, Ari stated that the choice between tank, DPS, or healer would make no difference. Soon, a massive energy sphere was launched towards the field, causing a massive explosion. In the face of the destruction, her avatar prepared for combat while the player promised to crush her opponent. The scene then returns to the previous conversation, where Jin Young insisted Jiho choose between a DPS or tank. The boy, however, confidently reaffirmed that he just needed to avoid being hit. With a firm look, he prepared for the duel. The reason was simple. For him, duels boiled down to who was better at piloting their character, like his utility Spiro. Thus, the character choice left Jin Young and the other spectators completely speechless. On the other hand, Hanari remained silent, observing her opponent's avatar. Soon after, the girl was surprised by the choice of a utility character, considering it a low viewpoint. Not understanding, she wondered what his true intention was in making that choice in a duel. With the hesitation, the club president began to suspect that the boy was mocking her. Ignoring the reaction, the competitor celebrated that the character's speed was sufficient, while the avatar jumped across the map. With warmed hands, he declared himself ready for combat. Next, his avatar positioned itself, prepared for the challenge ahead. In an instant, the opposing character jumped and delivered an energy strike that exploded against the ground. In response, the young man couldn't hide his reaction to the impressive speed of the first attack. With the charge, her avatar advanced and questioned whether he was mocking her. At that moment, the audience was shocked when Hanari referred to them as mobs. Thus, the girl shouted that she was exhausted from filtering out uncommitted players, as they were useless for a professional team. While running, the little robot tried to say there was a misunderstanding, but a familiar voice echoed. Suddenly, the metallic creature stumbled and fell to the ground during the escape. Soon, her character tried to hit him. Seizing the chance, the avatar jumped between the trees to escape the attacks. Next, Spiro advanced through the branches while being pursued by the continuous attack. However, the game's physics surprised the player, who hadn't expected the destruction of the scenery. The spectators, including Jin Young, watched the scene in complete silence. At that moment, the friend realized that, despite everything, the competitor still hadn't managed to land a single hit. In his chair, the boy remained focused, and Jin Young noticed that he wasn't being hit at all. In the arena, the little robot dodged all the attacks coming his way with agility. The sequence of dodges left the opponent completely irritated, calling him a mosquito. Thus, she realized she couldn't land a single effective hit on him. Soon after, her ultimate ability began to charge, which would increase the range of her attack. Hanari then planned to hit him with a basic attack to activate her ultimate, as she knew it was only a matter of time before he stopped fleeing. On the other side, the young man silently observed the opponent's movements. He recognized that the firepower of that thing was frightening, and that his rival was very skilled. Following that, the boy pressed the tab key, still wondering about the meaning of the number 446 he had seen earlier. Even in the face of the threat, he couldn't believe he could play at that speed again. With a smile on his face, he concluded that the feeling was simply incredible. Thus, the fact that he hadn't met Swordrust before began to charge his character with energy. The energy then concentrated in the robot's tail, catching the opponent's attention. At that moment, the competitor pressed one of the keys with full force. Soon, his character surged forward in a trail of energy, releasing all the anger he felt for having wasted so much time. Furious at the advance, the president shouted, questioning what that mosquito thought he was doing. With that, her avatar prepared a strike, but the robot advanced underneath with its energy. The clash between the two characters was inevitable and direct. With a focused gaze, the player prepared his move at the exact moment of impact. As soon as the blade came down, his character intercepted it using a basic counterattack skill. The move surprised everyone, and Jin Young shouted the name of the skill upon recognizing it. The counterattack made her avatar recoil from the force of the block. Then, the small robot responded with a spark from its own basic skill. The attack hit the opponent with a series of quick and continuous punches. Even while receiving the blows, the character showed no signs of suffering significant damage. Watching the fight, the friend noticed a flaw in the competitor's strategy. The transmission on the screen confirmed that the pathetic punches were barely causing damage. Soon, the opponent advanced again while the robot prepared to defend itself. Taking advantage of the proximity, it fired an energy beam at close range against her. The energy attack hit her squarely, forcing her character to recoil from the impact. The unexpected move left Hanari surprised and momentarily unresponsive. With that, her avatar was cornered against a cliff, having nowhere to escape. Soon, the small robot jumped away and landed at a safe distance. The sudden retreat made the opponent question the reason for that action. The spectators also didn't understand the pause, speculating if he was waiting for some skill recharge. Meanwhile, his character remained crouched on the ground, merely observing the rival. Suddenly, the young girl began to suspect the true intention behind that pause. The girl then realized that he was, in fact, provoking her. The provocation made her avatar react instantly, releasing an aura. With a smile, the competitor confirmed that the opponent had fallen for the bait. The boy knew that if the fight continued like this, both would run out of stamina due to the insignificant damage. He then remembered how, in one sword, a player ranked 125 was always weak against provocations. With this strategy, the young man always managed to turn the game around using a single super counterattack. Thus, he slammed his fist on the table and challenged her to use her move already. Totally startled, he realized he needed time. Soon he became paralyzed and stammered upon noticing that the monitor had turned off. Thus, Chanhyun remained watching Sung Jiho from across the hallway with a serious expression. Meanwhile, the club president was asked if she remembered his face and replied that she would see what would happen. Shortly after, the girl confirmed that she remembered and promised that she would humiliate him during the recruitment. In the hallway, the boy finally found the person he was looking for. Quickly, he recognized the player from One Sword, an action on the screen. Inside the game, the character's weapon was activated again. Suddenly, the competitor shouted, warning about his monitor. In the virtual field, the opponent attacked him from above. With that, he managed to dodge the blow by looking at the wall monitor. The audience reacted with astonishment, and even Jin Young was left open-mouthed at the scene. Next, the character advanced quickly to continue his assault. In an instant, he was surrounded by multiple blade strikes. Suddenly, one of the attacks hit him, sending him flying backward. The impact of the blow caused a large explosion in the middle of the scene. Not understanding, the friend asked why he was acting that way now, after having performed so well. Inside the game, the small robot partially rose from the sand and faced his opponent with low health. Soon, the other character looked down at him and questioned who he thought he was provoking. As soon as the warrior raised his weapon, the young man realized he would use his finishing move. Even if he dodged, he knew he would lose the fight with a single basic attack. With that, he recalled when he would shout in frustration over the frame drops on his old computer. He then asked his mother for a new graphics card under the pretense of watching online classes, but she questioned him. His justification about the quality of the teacher's transmission didn't convince her, and the woman simply told him to go out. The boy then wondered what he would do if the opponents teleported, as there was no other way out. At that time, he could only sit and listen to the enemies defeating him without being able to react. Desolate, the boy slumped in his chair until suddenly a new idea sprang to his mind. The image of a character attacking and stomping on the ground came to his head in an instant. With wide eyes, he finally understood what he needed to do. Then, he brought his hand to his mouth upon realizing that the answer was sound. From that moment on, he began to use the sounds of the game to predict and counter each movement of the opponent. Remembering how he had overcome his limitations in the past, he sat in front of the computer and decided to try once more. Back in the current match, the boy adjusted himself in the chair to focus on the game and try one last time. With renewed determination, he faced the screen and told himself that he could turn the situation around. Inside the game, the opponent watched as the little robot sped by, executing an unexpected maneuver. The sudden action left the president surprised, and she questioned what was happening. In an instant, the character moved so fast that it seemed to create clones. In light of this, the audience watching the confrontation was completely confused by that strategy. In the midst of the crowd, Shin Woo-jin observed everything with a discreet smile before turning to leave. At that moment, Jin Young saw his colleague walking away and called out his name, unable to believe what he was witnessing. At the same time, he was asked loudly what he was doing and where he was looking. On the other side, the player noticed that someone was speaking behind her. The person concluded that after being hit a few times, the boy was just playing around the whole time. With that, the opponent prepared to finish the match once and for all. Then, her character advanced, declaring that she would not go easy on him. Soon a new ability was activated at that moment. With that, her avatar executed its final technique, Prominence Blue. At that moment, Jin Young shouted amidst the crowd that this would be the decisive blow of the match. At the same time, he called out to his friend, who remained completely focused on the game. Suddenly, a huge wave of green energy descended from the skies. As soon as the robot landed, it prepared to react, realizing that victory was entirely possible. Next, the player activated her own final ability, a super counterattack to intercept the blow. Soon the two energies clashed in the air, causing a flash that illuminated the entire room. Little by little, the dust on the monitor began to settle, revealing the result of the confrontation. The audience remained silent, trying to understand which of the two characters had fallen. In the end, the little robot stood victorious over the fallen opponent, confirming that the counterattack had worked. Celebrating, Jin Young shouted that he finally understood why his colleague chose a utility class. The opponent merely stared at the screen, paralyzed and unable to believe she had been defeated. With a sigh of relief, the protagonist celebrated upon realizing he had passed the recruitment test. The next day, the school was shown empty right after classes ended. As soon as she grabbed her backpack, Han-Ari stood up and walked toward the classroom door. Then, the girl walked alone down the silent hallway toward the esports club. Upon reaching the door, she stopped and listened to see if the player known as Spiro was inside. Suddenly, the girl came across Sung Jiho being confronted and soon stated that he had failed. The boy then approached the president and asked why he had failed, receiving the answer that it was because she won the match. The young woman's explanation left him completely speechless for a moment. With her arms crossed, Han-Ari stated with a smile that she was the one who emerged victorious from the confrontation. However, the game ended with Jiho's robot standing over her character, ready for the final blow. The crowd shouted for him to finish off the opponent quickly. The little robot then prepared to attack the fallen and defenseless opponent on the ground. With that, the character was completely enveloped by blue energy. Both the audience and the player were confused by the result, not understanding what had happened. In the end, both characters fell to the ground at the same time. With wide eyes, Jiho stood frozen, not comprehending how that had occurred. Soon, he remembered that the opponent caused a continuous damage effect with her blows. A voice then announced that Hanari was the winner of the match, while she held the mouse. Even with the victory, the young woman continued to stare fixedly at the screen with a tense expression. In the audience, Chang Hyun heard others wondering what had happened and why the player had lost. After observing the final play, he remained serious, convinced of his suspicion. While watching the confusion, Chang Hyun was certain that Sung Jiho was the number one in the global ranking of one sword. As soon as he got home, the young man searched through forums and old articles to confirm his suspicion about the mysterious player. Although many veterans of that game were emerging, he found no mention of the whereabouts of the number one. Therefore, he questioned why such a talent had not yet migrated to Swordrush. At that moment, the image of the boy's decisive victory in the game flashed through his mind. With that memory, he had confirmation that he had finally found the legendary competitor. The impeccable skill demonstrated in the match was the definitive proof that it was indeed the number one in the ranking. The recollection of Jin Young scolding him at the internet cafe only reinforced his certainty about the prodigy's identity. Later, outside the building, a voice shouted. Soon after, his friend appeared complaining to him about the mistakes made in the match. Not understanding the scolding, the boy interrupted to ask what one of the game's slang terms meant. In response, Jin Young questioned why he was taking notes instead of being disappointed by the loss. The rookie explained that it was his fault for not knowing the skills and that he was excited to research. Additionally, he added that he was only upset for not having discovered such a fun game earlier. Shortly after, he declared firmly that his goal was to reach the first place in the global ranking. Meanwhile, the focus shifted back to Hanari, stating that it was she who won the match. Shin Woo-jin looked at her with a challenging expression. In front of the new recruits, the young woman congratulated everyone for being accepted and explained that there were no older students than her. Soon after, she formally introduced herself as the president of the esports club and a second-year student. One of the newcomers, Ha Sung-shin, introduced himself as the first-year tanker. Next, another asked if he could play other games, but the answer was no. Then, a second-year student named Choi Soyeon greeted everyone with a wave. Following that, Lee Chan-hyung, also a second-year student, introduced himself formally. After that, Han Ari turned to Shin Woo-jin and confirmed that he was a first-year student. With a serious look, she warned him not to use informal language with her. At that moment, a man entered the room while retorting that hierarchy should be determined by ranking. Immediately, the president interrupted him to introduce the professor in charge of the esports club. Professor Yoon Tae-in then congratulated the students for being accepted. Soon after, he suggested that they organize a practice match to get started. Thus, the members prepared to begin the match on their computers. During the match, the president shouted to the team that the enemy was on the brink of defeat. Meanwhile, the characters were engaged in a fierce battle using multiple skills. With such effort, one of the avatars finally finished off the creature. At that moment, Ha Sung-shin celebrated the successful play while Choi Soyeon congratulated her teammate. Shortly after, Lee Chan-hyung adjusted his headset confidently, exchanging a glance with the captain. The professor, in turn, watched the team play closely and reflected on the team's potential. At that moment, he imagined that with that formation, it would be possible to achieve great goals. For her part, the girl also thought about the possibility of becoming a professional player with that group. Suddenly, a woman burst into the room and began scolding one of the students in the middle of the match. Amid the confusion, Shin Woo-jin ordered the leader to regroup in the game. The intruder then dragged the student out, shouting that he should be studying. With the room in disarray, the boy questioned why no one was regrouping until Choi Soyeon called out the name of the taken colleague. The young woman was surprised to realize what had really happened. Soon after, in the cafe, the captain lamented to her colleagues that she had purposely lost to the new recruits. Then, she complained that the three most promising players had simply disappeared out of nowhere. In light of this, Shin Woo-jin mentioned the name of a certain competitor to her. The boy then quietly commented that he should have let that player participate. Shortly after, he admitted to the group that he was very skilled. The professor, in turn, instructed the group to find new members by the next day, and Choi Soyeon accepted the challenge. As they left, they commented that it would be easy to find candidates since many wanted to join the club. Before they left, the leader called Shin Woo-jin for a conversation. Firmly, she declared that the final decision on who joins the club was hers. After delivering the message, she turned and left him behind with the second-year colleague. The next day, she wrote the name of the club on the board to grab the attention of the first-year students. In her speech, she announced that an incident had opened 3 unexpected spots in the club. Therefore, she offered a new opportunity for everyone who did not make it in the first selection. The young woman explained that registration should be made by the end of the day, and that there would be a test to select the best candidates. As soon as she encouraged the students to sign up again, one of them responded that they would not participate. The student added that they preferred to go to an internet cafe instead of joining the club. Next, another confirmed that everyone in the room had heard what she said about them. The memory of her complaining during the game about having to filter out weak players resurfaced for everyone. With that, the representative repeated her words and stated that no one would join the club. Back in the room, the girl lamented having spoken too much, while Shin Woojin kept repeating the name Spiro. While resting her head on the table, the captain began to think about the player who had defeated her. At that moment, the image of Sung Jiho declaring that he would crush her on recruitment day flashed in her mind. Although Choi Soyeon tried to console her, she admitted that she needed that competitor on the team, even against her own will. At that moment, the club room door slowly opened. As he entered, Chan Hyun commented that the rumors about the club being a nuisance had already spread throughout the school. In response, the leader asked him if he knew how to play sword wrestling, but the boy replied indifferently. Despite the response, he offered to join the team, and the young woman confirmed, as there was no other option. Awkwardly, she accepted the newcomer's entry, while the other members welcomed him more enthusiastically. With such an opportunity, the boy reminded her that, being in the second year, he was not in a position to choose. Soon after, he asked if anyone else would show up, as the time to become professional was running out. In silence, the girl remained with a serious expression. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door and opened it wide, shouting that they had found the room. As he entered, Jin Young complained about how difficult it was to locate the club. Then, right in front of him, Sung Jiho appeared at the entrance. Surprised, Hanari stared at him, while the boy averted his gaze. Before she could say anything, she was interrupted by the newcomer's sudden request. Once again, she was taken aback by the unexpected interruption. With determination, Sung Jiho asked to take the test and have a new chance to join the club. As Han Ari's character advanced, the boy blocked her with a precise counterattack. Soon, the fighter was completely halted mid-movement. In the club room, he revealed that he had a condition for the match. In turn, the young woman stared at him, surprised by the unexpected proposal. Then she asked that if she won, Jin Young should also be accepted into the club. Immediately, the boy thought that he couldn't handle it. In the game, Sung Jiho's character nimbly dodged the attacks launched by the opponent. At that moment, the fighter noticed the unexpected movement of her rival. However, the challenger had completely changed his play style and character choice for the new match. The club members were impressed, questioning how he had improved so much in just one day. However, Han Ari remembered that he hadn't even played the ranking matches and questioned his rapid evolution. In a swift move, her character knocked him off a platform. As soon as they landed, both prepared for the next attack. While exchanging blows, the girl realized that he had impressive reaction time and game sense. The memory of Chanhyun saying that she could no longer choose new members came to mind. Soon after, she recalled her concern about the little time left to become professional. At that moment, her colleague's words about that specific player echoed in her thoughts. Shortly after, Chanhyun asked if she knew that Sung Jiho's monitor was off. Without reacting, the girl remained silent, unable to believe what she had heard. In the game, his character prepared a counterattack. With that, the fighter unleashed a powerful torrent of energy toward the opponent. The other club members watched the scene with expressions of astonishment. Even in the face of the attack, the fighter stood firm. Then he concentrated a large amount of energy into his weapon. Next, he deflected the attack with a single strike of his blade. The impact generated an explosion that completely engulfed Han Ari's character. At that moment, Jin Young celebrated the victory, but soon questioned whether he should really be happy with the result. For he realized that, with his friend's victory, he would also be forced to join the club. After the match, the boy stood up. The boy questioned Han Ari why she didn't play seriously, while the rival took off her headphones. In response, she explained that she used a character with an advantage to test his skills. Next, the girl stated that there was no reason not to choose him, as he had good mechanics and game understanding. Thus, Sung Jiho saw that the opponent admitted defeat to him. However, Han Ari warned him, saying that he should have notified her if the monitor had broken. Surprised, the boy realized that she knew he was playing without seeing the screen. Soon after, the young girl announced that she was leaving and turned to exit with Chanhyun. Finally, she congratulated Jin Young, confirming that he had also been accepted into the club. As she passed by, Chanhyun gave a slight smile, leaving Jin Young speechless. Shortly after, Professor Yoon Taein approached the two and asked why they were frozen. Then, he handed out the registration forms and instructed them to start filling them out. Later, Sung Jiho and Jin Young walked through the school courtyard. At that moment, the younger one commented that he couldn't believe Han Ari was the president, and that he was now part of the club. Then Jiho asked him if he didn't like the group, but his friend explained that the problem was the high level of the other members. Soon after, Jin Young admitted that he felt like he had taken a shortcut, but still wanted to keep playing with him. In response, the boy stated that it was because of him that he discovered sword wrestling, and that he also took the game seriously. Surprised, Jin Young listened in silence to the unexpected words. He then added that without them, the club would probably have already been shut down. Suddenly, the two turned around upon hearing someone calling for them. As she approached, Choi Soyeon waved and introduced herself as a second-year student. Then, both greeted her with a formal bow, but the young girl asked them not to be so stiff. Soon after, she commented that they seemed comfortable being informal with Hanari, leaving them puzzled by the observation. Next, she explained that she wanted to be close to them, just like the president was. Upon hearing this, the two wondered if the leader was a second year, and Soyeon was surprised that they didn't know. By evening, Hanari and Changhyun were walking home together. At that moment, he asked if she was upset, and said she did the right thing by letting the player in. He soon advised her not to be so proud, as the rookie's skills were undeniable. The girl, however, corrected him, explaining that she didn't feel bad, but rather angry. Next, she vented that it felt like all her effort and dedication to the games had been in vain. Thus, she recalled how much she trained for years to become ranked, but the boy's talent made her doubt herself. With that, she admitted that this was exactly what made her so irritated. She then questioned if he understood what it was like to lose to a complete rookie. In response to her outburst, Changhyun simply gave a slight smile. He then stated that the newcomer would play a crucial role in helping her become professional, but she retorted that she would probably end up as his assistant. Changing the subject, he asked how she managed to get a responsible teacher, as he was sure she would be rejected. The memory of when Professor Yoon Tae-in offered for the position came to her mind. Soon after, the girl explained that he admitted to having been a gaming addict when he was a student. Surprised, Cha-hyun reacted to the unexpected revelation. With that, he commented that the situation would make future conversations easier. The next day, in the club room, the professor announced that they were now an officially approved group. With everyone gathered, he explained that since classes ended late, they would only discuss the positions before going home. Then, he began to announce the roles, designating Hanari as the main damage dealer. Soon after, he assigned Sung Ji-ho as the main utility player, which excited the boy. Next, Choi Soyeon was assigned as the main tank, and she accepted the role without any issues. Shortly after, the professor asked Jin Young if he would accept the tank position, and the boy awkwardly agreed. He then prepared to announce the last role of the team. To everyone's surprise, he revealed that Shin Woo-jin would be the main healer. At that moment, Jin Young was incredulous that the club had a ranked player and a grandmaster, questioning his class choice. Even in the face of Woo-jin's irritated reaction, Ji-ho praised him for being amazing. Then, the professor thanked Chang-hyun for signing up when the club was about to close. After defining the positions, he dismissed everyone and said he would research the best formation for the team. As he stood up to leave, Chang-hyun announced that he would create a group chat for the team. At that moment, Ji-ho excitedly commented on how amazing it was to gather because of games and that he could hardly wait for the next day. Noticing his colleague's expression, Ji-ho asked why he looked so down, and Jin Young replied that he felt like he was the center of attention in a bad way. Suddenly, a voice called out for Spiro, and a silhouette appeared behind Sung Ji-ho. Not understanding, the boy introduced himself with his own name, leaving his friend confused. As soon as the figure revealed itself, Woo-jin said he had been waiting for him and challenged him to a fight. At that moment, Ji-ho prepared for combat, but Jin Young scolded him, saying it wasn't that kind of challenge. Soon after, a teacher said goodbye to Yoon Tae-in, thanking him for his effort. Shortly after, Chang-hyun entered the room and called him for a conversation. On that occasion, he handed a stack of papers to the teacher, who asked what it was. Upon examining the documents, Yoon Tae-in realized it was a list of other schools. With that, Chang-hyun explained that he thought it would be better to prepare in advance for a friendly match. As soon as Yoon Tae-in placed the papers on his desk, he felt the weight of what he was holding. For that document with the graduation level had been prepared in just one day. Moreover, Chang-hyun acted as if he didn't care about the outcome. With that, the teacher smiled as he finally understood the boy's personality. Shortly after, without caring, Woo-jin continued the provocation, saying he wanted to see him crawling at his feet. In response, the other said he didn't like the way he spoke, surprising the friend beside him. Before Woo-jin could react, Ji-ho explained that he needed to go home to research sword dress. While commenting that he didn't have money for an internet cafe, Jin Young suggested that Woo-jin pay. Soon the boy's expression changed as he realized he couldn't respond at that point. As soon as Sung Ji-ho started to run, the rival turned and asked about his way of speaking. At that moment, Woo-jin fell silent, merely watching in the direction where the boy ran. Not understanding the situation, the troublemaker grabbed Jin Young by the collar and shouted about the other's attitude. The next day, the routine at school seemed to start as usual for everyone. Through their phones, the members of the esports club arranged a meeting at the internet cafe. During class, Ji-ho took notes in his notebook while thinking about the commitment later. Suddenly, Woo-jin leaned over from behind him and began to repeat his old nickname. Following that, the boy tried to hide in various places in the room while being followed. Fallen on the ground, Ji-ho covered his ears while the same words seemed to echo everywhere. Finally, he got up and told the pursuer to stop, while Jin Young watched from afar. The young man then shouted that he would go crazy if that insistence didn't stop immediately. With that, Woo-jin explained that he only acted that way to get his attention. Upon hearing another curse, Jiho remembered hearing that way of speaking somewhere. Soon after, he directly asked the delinquent why he used so many swear words. At that moment, Woojin countered the question, asking if the word he used was really a curse. Then, Jiho smiled and changed the subject, deciding to let the matter go. Thus, he proposed a deal and said he would accept the challenge if the rival promised not to use swear words. With his head down, Woojin began to laugh quietly upon hearing the proposal. Soon after, he ended up agreeing to use kind words. Later, the three arrived at the internet cafe building for the match. As soon as they entered, Jiho sat down at one of the computers, with the other two right behind him. While adjusting his hand, Woojin told the boy to play like Spiro. Even without understanding, he accepted the condition but corrected him by saying his real name. Beside him, Jin Young tried to understand the rival's obsession with that specific character. With that, the match began, and the two avatars appeared in the battle arena. Soon Jiho recognized the lava map he had only seen in videos. As the fight started, a red attack quickly advanced toward his character. The avatar then used a skill to dodge, jumping between the rocks. Then, he landed safely on top of a stone. At that moment, Woojin commented that he really wanted to defeat Jiho in a fight without a time limit. Soon after, his character jumped to attack while saying he hadn't faced a decent utility player in a long time. Seeing the screen, Jin Young explained that it was an offensive-style healer, capable of self-healing and attacking. On the other side, Jiho realized that the opponent's mechanics were at a Grandmaster level, being the worst combination for his hero. With that, Jin Young finally understood what was happening. In fact, the delinquent didn't want a fair match, he just wanted to torment Jiho. Far from there, in front of the course building, night was already beginning to fall. As soon as Soyeon left, her friends called out to her asking where she was going in such a hurry. Next, the girl apologized and declined the invitation to eat, explaining that she had plans after her private lesson. Awkwardly, her friends wanted to know what she would be doing at that time. Soyeon just smiled and replied that it was an activity similar to a club. Meanwhile, Jin Young continued to watch the game in silence, unable to say a word. On the screen, Woojin's avatar advanced and delivered a direct blow to the opposing character. The attack was quickly avoided with jumps around the corners of the scene. Without taking damage, the fighter used his bandages to heal completely with a skill. Soon after, the avatar floated in the air with renewed energy, while Jiho watched from below. At that moment, Jin Young realized that he was healing as soon as the skill's cooldown time ended. Woojin shouted angrily, calling the other player a mosquito. In light of the situation, Jiho's character merely lamented not being able to heal in the same way. Still, Jiho remained focused, thinking about how he could finish that fight. Beside him, Jin Young was surprised to notice that a 2-minute match had already lasted 10. In silence, he wondered how Jiho was so skilled after only a few days of playing swordress. Suddenly, Hanari appeared behind him and asked what he was doing there. With that, the girl yelled at the two, demanding to know why they were wasting time instead of training. Sure enough, they immediately received a quality slap for that. Then, Soyeon entered and announced her arrival, recognizing Ari's uncle's cyber cafe. As soon as she walked in, she greeted everyone but stopped upon seeing the scene before her. The young girl waved awkwardly and quickly lowered her hand upon sensing the tense atmosphere. With a smile, Ari held her friend's hands and thanked her for being there. Soon after, Ari hugged her and commented that she smelled nice. In response, Soyeon apologized for being late and said they could start now. Meanwhile, time continued to pass outside the cyber cafe. Sitting further back, the attendant merely observed the group of students. All the club members gathered, with the delinquents staring at them with crossed arms. Then, the four settled at their computers and put on their headphones to start training. From his desk, the attendant watched the team's dynamics with a slight smile. As soon as Changhyun entered, the employee greeted him politely. The newcomer approached the table and called out to Ari. The girl responded without turning around, but he explained that he wasn't there to bother her but to deliver a message. With everyone's attention on him, Changhyun announced that he had organized a friendly match. Ari turned around in surprise upon hearing that they would have an official competition. In the next moment, when she looked again, she realized that the boy was no longer there. After that, she commented that he always said just enough and then disappeared. Jin Young then questioned the match, remembering that the club had only been formed the day before. In response, Sung Jiho speculated that there must be an esports club at another school. Beside him, Woojin commented on a specific attack angle within the game. Not knowing how to react, Jin Young merely followed the situation with a worried expression. Suddenly, the attendant returned and told everyone to go home. Firmly, he shouted that it was already 10 at night, making everyone realize the time. Outside, Ari said goodbye and scheduled a meeting in the club room for the next day. As they walked back, Jin Young and Jiho strolled together along the sidewalk. For the first time, the boy realized that he was jealous of his friend's skill in the game. With that, he understood that talent for games truly existed and Jiho possessed it. Suddenly, the student stopped, complaining of a sudden dizziness. Soon after, a voice called out to Jin Young, making him turn around in surprise. As he looked up, Jin Young saw Changhyun standing nearby, watching the two. The newcomer then said that, even though he joined the club because of a friend, that wasn't enough. With that, he stated that his colleague would still need to work hard to fulfill his part in the team. The three remained motionless on the sidewalk, facing each other after the warning. Upon hearing those words, Jin Young confirmed that this was exactly what he expected. For a moment, he even regretted joining the club. Before the silence could stretch on, Jiho interjected to talk to Chang Hyun about the matter. Then, he defended his friend and explained that his only flaw was having played alone until that moment. Determined, Jiho stated that he would help him improve in the game. The other merely stared at him, unable to say anything. Soon after, he commented that his companion seemed a bit out of sorts at that moment. Chang Hyun then changed the subject and asked if Jiho had already completed his placement matches. He then mentioned that Jiho was probably already aware of his concerns. The boy explained that that match was very important for Ari and asked him to pull himself together. As he walked away, he advised him not to keep all the stress to himself. At the same time, he reflected on what the ranking of the former #1 player of one sword would be. Soon after, he called for his friend, who responded back. With a smile, Jiho told him not to worry about it. The next day, the teacher announced that he would send the registrations for the school championship, starting with Sung Jiho's. Next, Han Ari's registration was confirmed, showing her position as DPS and ranking 445. Shortly after, Soyeon's registration also appeared, revealing her position as an all-rounder in the platinum tier. Woojin's record listed him as a healer at the Grandmaster level. To some people's surprise, Jin Young was listed as a tank in the silver tier. Upon seeing Chang Hyun's record with no information, he explained that he just thought he would need an ID. After checking all the details, Professor Yoon Tae-in closed the folder in his hands. Adjusting his glasses, he began to talk about the team they would be facing. With that, he announced that the team was from Yongju Digital High School, the first school specialized in esports in Korea. Upon hearing the name of the school, Ari's eyes widened in shock. The teacher then smiled discreetly before continuing his explanation to the team. That team was strong and had finished in 4th place in the last school competition. Moreover, they had won the previous year's championship and were considered favorites to win the tournament again. However, 2 players from that team were selected for the professional league midway through the competition. Even using substitutes, the team managed to stay among the top 4. As soon as he closed the folder, Professor Yoon Tae-in concluded that they had not played with their full strength. Han Ari remained attentive as the teacher explained that the substitutes from the other team reached the semifinals even without synergy. Next to the teacher, Chang Hyun simply nodded in agreement with the analysis. The team then turned their gaze to him, and he turned to speak to everyone. With that, he warned that although it was just a friendly match for the opponent, for them it was an official game. Sung Jiho listened carefully to the alert that this was a valuable opportunity. Soon after, it was explained that friendly matches helped accumulate points necessary for the tournament. With such points, there would be a chance to participate in the competition and advance to the finals. Next, Chang Hyun clarified that a new club would receive additional points for defeating a school from the previous year. Therefore, even in the event of a loss, the match would still hold value for the group. Shin Woo-jin then questioned the opposing lineup, while Jiho was surprised to hear that they were newcomers. He then confessed to being irritated by that situation. Ari brought her hand to her face, unable to believe it. Chang Hyun stated that there was no reason to be angry and that it was actually a relief. With that, Ari lifted her face and asked if the friendly match had only been scheduled because of her. The boy asked her to think positively, while the teacher found her reaction strange and commented that no one understood what she meant. At that moment, Jin Young asked for an explanation to lighten the heavy atmosphere in the room. The girl remained silent for a few moments, under Soyeon's worried gaze. Soon after, Ari revealed that she had been the top scorer in the admission exam for the esports specialization. Upon hearing the revelation, everyone was completely shocked. The young girl then explained that, although it was surprising for the other school to accept the friendly match, she felt irritated by the fact that they were sending newcomers. With that, she confidently declared that there was no way they could lose the match. Jiho merely followed the conversation with a nervous expression. Next, he asked why she had gone to a regular school, and Ari replied that her parents were against it. The student commented that if she had come this far and given up, the reason would be obvious. Soon after, she looked directly at Jiho and asked him to take care of himself. At that moment, the boy finally understood the reason for her behavior at the cyber cafe. The image of his avatar appeared behind her, reflecting his intensity. With that, he decided that he would win the friendly match at all costs. In the hallways, Soyeon found her friends and asked if they were going to the cyber cafe again. Jiho explained that they needed to stop by his house first, and she understood. As soon as the classmates said goodbye, Ari watched the two from a distance. While walking with Chang Hyun, the girl wanted to know what she should do to prepare for the match. The boy reminded her that the opponent was Yongju High, and that the match would be the day after tomorrow. With her back to her friend, Han Ari declared that she would use that opportunity to assess the team's skills. Chang Hyun then questioned about the outcome of the match, and she assured him that they would not lose. With a firm look, the young woman stated that she would defeat all opponents that appeared. Upon hearing the declaration, the boy merely observed that she had not changed at all. As they walked together down the hallway, he reflected that this confrontation would be difficult. 2 days later, the event sign announced the match between the esports club of Dano High School and the esports class of Yongju High. On the scheduled day, Sung Jiho arrived at the rented cyber cafe, located halfway between the two schools. Thus, he was the first to arrive for the friendly confrontation. The boy was an hour early for the game that was set to start at 11. Soon, he decided to use the extra time to warm up his hands before the start. While waiting, a white van suddenly stopped on the sidewalk next to him. As soon as the door opened, he noticed the Yongju High School sticker on the vehicle. Then, 5 students got out and stared at him in silence. The leader of the group looked around and then fixed his gaze on him. Jiho was impressed to realize that they were receiving special treatment just for playing. One of the students asked who he was, while another seemed to recognize him. The representative of Yongju High, Mingyu, asked if he was from Dano High School, and the boy confirmed. Shortly after, Mingyu extended his hand to greet him formally. For a moment, Jiho imagined a scene of sports rivalry, with both teams staring each other down. Soon after, he shook the hand of the opposing player and introduced himself as a member of the esports club. Not knowing how to continue the conversation, he asked what position Mingyu played, who replied that he played as a tank. Next, Mingyu wanted to know what his tier was, and Jiho explained that he had not yet completed his placement matches. Upon hearing the response, the representative stared at him and declared that he was nothing but complete trash. With that, Jiho's expression changed immediately, while Mingyu continued and asked if the rest of the team was like that too. Some time later, the team gathered at a PC bang for the match against Yongju High. As they observed the environment, Han Ari and Soyeon found the silence strange, and one of them asked if they were the first to arrive. As she approached, the girl noticed that their opponents were already playing. All the team members were completely focused on their monitors, warming up for the confrontation. Still, it was noted that Coach Yoon Taein had not arrived to accompany them. With that, the memory of how their colleagues used to behave came to mind. The memory made her bring her hand to her face in a gesture of fatigue. However, the noise coming from one of the stations caught the observer's attention. So intense was Sung Jiho's concentration that he almost seemed like a different person. Beside him, his friend also noticed the change and tried to comment on him. Thus, Ari finally understood the reason for such focus. All that seriousness was a direct response to what the Yongju High team had said. Soon after, the match began on the Zero Gravity map, a 4v4 elimination battle with professional league rules. As the coach and Jin Young watched closely, the format of the contest was set as a best of 5. Shortly after, the boy wished everyone good luck, reminding them that the game was taking place on a tournament server. Within the match, the group positioned themselves with Jiho as utility, Shin Woo-jin as healer, Soyeon as tank, and Han Ari as DPS. On the other side, the rivals mocked the utility for not having completed his placement matches yet. Feeling the atmosphere weighed down, Jin Young commented that the tension in the place was no joke. As the countdown approached its end, all players maintained absolute focus on their monitors. As soon as it started, the 8 avatars appeared on the map and immediately spread out. At that moment, Go Mingyu's character disdainfully declared that he would finish this quickly so he could go home. Therefore, he ordered his team to split up and use the rock to propel their advance. In the face of the debris, the DPS and the healer prepared for the attack. Not understanding the strategy, the coach asked why the enemy was moving so dispersely, and Jin Young explained that it was to gain speed. Additionally, he added that on the zero gravity map, it was possible to use the rocks to accelerate and prepare an attack from multiple directions. The boy concluded that the tactic would put them at a disadvantage, as it would be difficult to respond to a pincer attack. With that, he understood that the enemy had chosen a character with a long attack range precisely for this strategy. Meanwhile, Mingyu found it strange that the opponents had no reaction and asked if they were retarded. Right after, his teammate agreed, questioning if they were just wasting everyone's time. Meanwhile, the third member of Yongju High started laughing, claiming it was obvious they hadn't done their placement matches yet. Outside, Yoon Taein and Jin Young heard the opponents mock that the only strategy of the young players was to go home humiliated. Inside the game, the character Saigon decided that the attack should start with the enemy team's healer. Thus, he advanced and delivered a direct blow against Shin Woo-jin's avatar. At that moment, the opposing player sighed in boredom, finding the victory too easy. Soon after, the teammate complained that it was a waste of time since he had a class to attend. Suddenly, the healer's character reappeared unharmed elsewhere, surprising everyone. With a smile on his face, Woo-jin asked if the opponents didn't usually play paying attention to the game's sounds. The taunt made Go Mingyu widen his eyes at his monitor. On the map, the enemies realized that Jiho's entire team was now gathered on a single asteroid. Not understanding what had happened, the character Malik wondered where they had all gone. Before he could react, an enemy jumped towards him with a prepared attack. With that, he hit the opponent squarely. The impact violently launched Go Mingyu's avatar against another rock. Surprised, the young man shouted and wondered when the opponent had come up behind him. Right after, Jiho's character used the momentum to attack Saigon, who was caught off guard. Seeing the confusion, one of the Yongju High players tried to warn his teammate that someone was approaching from behind. Even with the warning, the group was hit by a coordinated attack coming from 2 different directions. The offensive was so quick that one of the opposing team members became completely disoriented. In an instant, Jiho's avatar ricocheted between them to attack. Thus, seeing the strategy work, the team's DPS readied her weapon and declared that it was their turn now. Even at a disadvantage, Go Mingyu tried to counterattack and jump towards the enemy. At the moment of confrontation, a large silhouette formed, surprising the opponent. Then, his character hit the opponent squarely. As soon as the small avatar landed, Saigon fell back defensively. With a quick movement, the player blocked the enemy's weapon and struck with a direct blow. With that, the opposing character's body fell to the ground, paralyzed and unresponsive. The Yongju High member stared at the screen, unable to believe what had happened. Outside, the coach shouted that the play was incredible and that Jiho was impressive. Still, the teacher asked why he was using that character, and Jin Yong explained that the strategy was shaking the opponents. Thus, Jin Yong concluded by saying that the opponents were losing confidence because they couldn't defeat a character they considered inferior. In light of this, Go Mingyu began to wonder if he would ever face him as a professional. His expression changed as he considered that the entire enemy team could be just as skilled. At that moment, Jin Yong noticed a change in atmosphere and stated that the opponents would no longer be able to maintain their focus. Soon after, the scene returned to 10 seconds before the game, when Han Ari called Sung Jiho for a talk. At that moment, the girl said she didn't know exactly what the members of the other team had said. Still, she asked her teammate to suffocate their minds until they could no longer think. Back in the match, the Yongju High team looked at their monitors with empty and exhausted expressions. Meanwhile, Jiho's avatar remained victorious over the paralyzed body of his opponent. Thus, Go Mingyu watched his monitor, paralyzed by the defeat of his teammate. Soon after, the character Lilazu questioned what was happening, completely lost on the map. Suddenly, Han Ari's avatar appeared behind him, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. With that, the young girl unleashed a wave of energy that hit the opponent squarely. Meanwhile, the character Bura was trying to escape the relentless pursuit of Soyen's avatar. Soon, the tank landed a powerful punch that sent the healer flying. The impact hurled the character against an asteroid, which shattered with the force of the collision. Even without understanding, Malak saw his team's healer being attacked. Then, Shin Wujin's avatar prepared a new attack. The blows sent the character forcefully against another one of the floating rocks. With that, the remaining avatars collided in a direct and chaotic confrontation. Thus, Mingyu was completely incredulous about the result of the first round. In just 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the match, Yoon Taein and Jin Yong celebrated the play. Soon after, the screen confirmed Dano Hai's victory in the first round of the elimination mode. Shortly thereafter, Sung Jiho finally exhaled the breath he had been holding throughout the match. Next to him, the coach shouted excitedly, celebrating what he called a crushing victory. At that moment, Han Ari smiled and stated that her teammates' focus was good even in real matches. In light of the result, she realized that with this team she could finally become a professional player. On the other side of the room, the members of Yongju High remained seated in silence. Meanwhile, Go Mingyu stared blankly, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Upon hearing his name, Jiho turned around and saw the girl congratulating him on a job well done. He then reciprocated the high five she offered to celebrate together. Suddenly, a loud noise caught everyone's attention in the room. Lying on the floor next to his chair, Jiho was completely motionless. Not understanding, the coach and Jin Yong ran towards him, shouting his name. Ari knelt beside him and asked what was wrong as he gasped for breath. While the opposing team urged him to recover, Mingyu watched the confusion in silence. Soon after, a discreet smile appeared on his face as he realized the opportunity. In a private room, the teacher thanked the manager for allowing Jiho to rest on the couch. As a result, the gaming station he had been using was now completely empty. Gathered together, Shin Wujin suggested they ask the other team to remove a member as well. Not knowing what to do, Han Ari wondered how they had ended up in such a ridiculous situation. Lying on the couch, Sung Jiho was suffering the effects of severe 3D motion sickness. As she recalled the match, Ari finally understood why no one had noticed the problem until then. His concentration on the game was so intense that it completely masked his discomfort. At that moment, the girl realized something important about the competition. She began to wonder if her teammate had played at a higher speed because of the taunts. The memory of Spiro's acceleration, which was double the normal, confirmed her suspicion. With that, she understood that he would need time to recover and was left unsure of what to do. Even without an answer, the young woman tried to find a solution. Inside, Yoon Taein leaned over Jiho and asked if he was awake yet. Still gasping, the boy covered his face and managed to call for the teacher with difficulty. Even weak, Taein heard the students say he didn't want to give up. Determined, Jiho looked up and stated that he wouldn't accept losing to that kind of people. The teacher responded by telling him to calm down, as the match had already started without his presence. The news left him completely surprised by what he had just heard. In the game, Jin Yong's substitute avatar roared intimidatingly at the opponents. In an instant, he charged at Saigon and attacked him with his weapon. The blow was so powerful that it knocked the opponent to the ground with a single move. Seeing the scene, Ari shouted for her teammate to be careful and not get carried away by excitement. Still, she knew that if he looked to both sides he would be fine. The scene then returned to the moment when Jin Young was surprised to be called to participate. Even without understanding, the team reminded him that he was undeniably a bench player. With that, Ari looked at him seriously. She then stated that, above all, he was also a member of the team. After a moment of silence, the boy finally agreed to take his place in the match. Seeing the situation, Taein wondered if he would be okay against the Youngju High students. Back in the present, Go Mingyu questioned what tier the substitute would be. Soon after, he tried to check the profile but found it was blocked due to being a tournament server. Thus, he understood that he would only be able to discover the opponent's level during the actual combat. In the game, Jin Young's avatar was caught off guard by a quick attack. As a result, the boy retreated and used the momentum from the rocks to escape the direct confrontation. From her station, Ari taunted the opponent and asked if he was going crazy. Shortly after, the screen showed Soyeon controlling the character Spiro in place of Sung Jiho. The girl thought that although her teammate was a versatile player, it wouldn't take long for the opponent to adapt. Before the skill gap between Soyeon and Jiho became clear, Ari decided she needed to end the match quickly. With that, she advanced and shouted to warn Jin Young that the character Saigun was right behind him. Even surprised, the substitute turned in time to see the approaching threat. He then spun around and landed a devastating counterattack on the enemy. The unexpected move left Go Mingyu and Ari speechless. At that moment, the scene returned to a moment in the past when Jin Young asked what Jiho wanted to give him. With a notebook in hand, the boy explained that it had taken him some time to analyze everything. Not understanding, the substitute asked what that was. Jiho then revealed that those were strategy notes for the tank character he was using. Back in the game, Jin Young put into practice the fighting tactics he had studied. Jin Young looked at the screen, shocked by his own move. Unable to contain himself, he shouted that it had been incredible. At that moment, he remembered studying the notebook at home and how easy the notes were to understand. The material was so well explained that he flipped through the pages, impressed by the quality of the analysis. Back in the match, he stared at the monitor and wondered if the strategy had really worked. Even though he couldn't believe it, he heard Ari congratulate him on the move and was left speechless. On the other side, one of the players from Youngju High stared at his teammates and said that it was madness. Meanwhile, the teammates lamented that the next attack probably wouldn't work, as the utility player would block them. With that, Mingyu realized that it made sense for them to be having a mental breakdown. The opposing team simply wasn't giving them time to counterattack. At that moment, he finally admitted that his biggest mistake was underestimating all of them. He then turned to his teammates and said they needed to think of anything to get out of that situation. Suddenly, he noticed that the utility player's movements had become slower and wondered if it was a trick. Soon, a new possibility arose in his mind as he considered that perhaps not all team members were good. Suddenly, Go Mingyu tapped a teammate's shoulder, catching his attention. He then turned to him and asked him to listen carefully to what he was about to say. On the other side, Ari gave a new order and told the team to charge at them with everything they had. With that, she instructed Jin Young to lead as the vanguard of the attack, leaving him surprised. She explained that he just needed to withstand the attack once, as she would be right behind for support. In the game, her character ensured that she would provide full coverage. Even feeling apprehensive, the young man focused on executing the plan as best as he could. With a shout of determination, his avatar advanced impressively against the opponents. As the team moved in formation, Ari commanded them to advance. However, he noticed that the enemy DPS was moving strangely. The character Saigun had abandoned his position to chase the opposing tank. Seeing the opportunity, the girl ordered Soyeon to follow him, and her teammate responded with a shot. In his chair, Go Mingyu silently observed all the movements from the enemy side. In his mind, he imagined himself facing all the avatars of the opposing team alone. With that, he adjusted his foot position, preparing for the next move. The young man then revealed that he had been saving that move for the school competition cup. With that, his character Malik charged at the opponents and cursed at them. He then used a rock to propel himself toward the enemy team. Halfway there, Soyeon's avatar, Spiro, positioned itself to intercept Saigun. She wondered if he was still scared and would avoid her again. Suddenly, the girl's expression changed as she noticed something different. Instead of retreating, Saigun advanced with his weapon drawn for a direct confrontation. Soon, the two avatars collided in midair in an exchange of blows. From her monitor, Soyeon realized that his movements had changed completely. Meanwhile, Ari's characters and the allied tank prepared for Malik's advance. The giant from Youngju High raised his weapon to deliver a crushing blow. Seeing the charge, the substitute focused and told himself that he needed to succeed. As the two avatars were about to collide, the boy's eyes widened. The maneuver followed exactly the tactic of pulling the opponent to make him miss, and then landing safely. The move left the rookie and Yoon Taein completely shocked by the precision of the action. He then applied the tactic from the notebook, which taught to attack the lower body of the enemy after a mistake. With that, the character controlled by the boy managed to defend himself. The precision of the move surprised both the player himself and Go Mingyu. The scene then returned to the moment when he was reading the notes. Soon after, he leaned back in his chair, certain that he would not participate in the match. Back in the game, the avatar advanced with a new attack against Malik. The blow made Mingyu shout, surprised by the charge. The impact broke the opponent's defense in an instant, leaving him vulnerable. With that, the captain called Minjun and ordered him to go after the utility player. Minjun complained, but he was grabbed and heard that he should shut up and obey if he didn't want to lose. Then, the leader turned to the others and demanded that everyone pay attention. Mingyu then pointed out that, with the change in the tank and the slowness of the utility, their only good player was missing. He shouted for them to wake up, as they could not choose their opponents, and would face worse teams in the future. The captain continued, stating that if they lost to a bunch of unknowns, they would not be considered candidates in the schools. He then ordered his teammates to pull themselves together and get back into the game. With the order, the avatars of Hanari and the allied tank prepared for the enemy advance. Soon, the 3 remaining characters from Yongju High surrounded the opponents in a coordinated attack. In an instant, the team managed to trap Soyeon in a combined attack. With that, her avatar was hit and eliminated from the match. Ari's eyes widened at the defeat of her teammate. Shortly after, the substitute was also defeated and fell to the ground. Mingyu then realized that the rivals had deliberately hidden their tears to deceive them. With only 2 players remaining, Shin Woo-jin's character stated that they were lost. The captain was left speechless in the face of the huge disadvantage. Taking advantage of the situation, the full team from Yongju High advanced against the 2 opponents. Even at a disadvantage, her expression changed as she remembered Sung Ji-ho. She then stood firm and declared that they needed to hold on. With that, she concluded that their only chance was to resist until Ji-ho recovered and returned to the match. The mere mention of that strategy made Shin Woo-jin shout that he did not want to do that at all. Therefore, Shin Woo-jin questioned whether the strategy of holding on meant just waiting for defeat. Soon after, the healer stopped healing and changed his game tactic. After that, his character charged directly at the enemies to everyone's surprise. Not understanding, Hanari merely observed her teammates' unexpected behavior. With that, they wondered why they were being attacked by a single person. On the other hand, Go Mingyu interpreted the action as a sign that the opponent had already given up on victory. One of the players took advantage of the confusion to charge at the opponent. Shortly after, he tried to hit him, but it was in vain. Meanwhile, the young man advanced against their leader. He used his skill to hit him but was also ineffective. The situation on the battlefield became even more chaotic with everyone surrounding them. As the scene changed, the strategist stated that things were now much better. Meanwhile, Hanari watched everything closely. The young man's character was then defeated and dragged by the opponent. The warrior then told her to handle the situation alone from that moment on. Shortly after, he warned her not to even think about mentioning Sung Ji-ho's name. The enemy then threw the defeated character in front of her as a gift. Without any reaction, Hanari's character merely observed the scene. Hanari shouted, questioning if he thought she needed help to hold on. In the distance, another team commented on how the whole situation was a mess. Even so, one of them praised her persistence during the match. With the advantage secured, Go Mingyu decided it was time to end the fight. Thus, all 4 players advanced for the final attack. Suddenly, the teacher appeared and asked how that had happened. Hanari wondered how the situation had reached that point. Seeing the despair of her opponent, the rival merely smiled smugly. Go Mingyu analyzed that Hanari had no strategy and played recklessly. With that, he realized that her attitude irritated her own players and that her leadership was poor. He concluded that she simply played relying on her own skills. To Go Mingyu, the player saw her teammates merely as decorations. Thus, he stated that from the beginning, that match had always been a 1 against 4. Within the game, Hanari's character merely resisted the continuous attacks. Elsewhere, Chang Hyun asked if there was anything else to prepare. He soon stated that the match would take place the day after tomorrow. At that moment, he explained that there was no time to prepare. The lack of time prevented him from devising any new battle strategy. Then, Chang Hyun asked him what they would do in the match. Hanari listened attentively but did not know how to respond. Meanwhile, Go Mingyu's team stated that they would not lose no matter what. Hanari declared that she would defeat them herself. Despite her determination, the young woman had still not been defeated. Therefore, her character was left alone on the battlefield. Even so, she managed to eliminate one of the opponents. The opposing team was surprised that she had taken one of them down. Surprised, Go Mingyu commented that there wasn't much time and told them to finish the match quickly. Soon, the young woman found herself surrounded by multiple simultaneous attacks. Jin Young observed that, in her current state, she would not be able to block 3 people at the same time. Even at a disadvantage, her character wielded the weapon to resist. With that, the 3 remaining opponents advanced for the final blow. Meanwhile, all the spectators watched the scene without blinking. The fighter was then completely overwhelmed by the combined attack. Far away, Sung Ji-ho continued to recover slowly. Suddenly, he stood up and decided he needed to go. As soon as he opened the door, the professor met him and asked if he was okay. Sung Ji-ho assured him that he was fine and would play, even with the professor insisting on his condition. Soon, He promised not to overdo it and said he needed to return so that Jin Young wouldn't be overwhelmed. In response, the professor coldly informed him that all the matches had already ended. The news left Sung Ji-ho completely speechless. Without wasting any time, he ran back to the club room. Upon arriving, he found the place completely empty. Jin Young, Han-ari, and the others, already defeated, remained silent. Therefore, Professor Yoon Tae-in clapped his hands and asked everyone to compose themselves. Soon after, he congratulated the team for their good work in the first official match. The professor acknowledged the disappointment with the result but stated that they gained a lot from the experience. In a serious tone, he took much of the responsibility for the results. Yoon Tae-in admitted that, unlike the students, he hadn't prepared anything and just watched. Thus, he declared that he would stop making excuses and dedicate himself more to the team. The professor promised that he would take responsibility for them and asked them to cheer up. To conclude, he said that they would still lose a lot, so they should remember the moments of victory. At that moment, Han-ari let out a loud scream. Her unexpected reaction surprised all the team members. Sung Ji-ho simply observed the scene in silence. The professor asked her not to cry, but Han-ari shouted that she wasn't crying. Sung Ji-ho celebrated, thinking that she was already feeling better. The professor agreed with her improvement, while Sung Ji-ho rushed to grab his backpack. He hurried back to the team. Soon after, Sung Ji-ho offered an energy drink to Jin Young. Jin Young questioned if that was all that had been in the backpack all along, as he expected something amazing. Not understanding, he asked why Sung Ji-ho carried that backpack. Sung Ji-ho replied that the backpack made him look like an athlete, leaving Jin Young speechless. Unexpectedly, Han-ari turned and asked why he hadn't mentioned that he got motion sickness from 3D. Caught off guard, Sung Ji-ho didn't know how to respond immediately. He then explained that he had never played to the point of feeling sick before, so he didn't know. Moreover, he admitted that he had exaggerated a bit during that day's match. Han-ari simply watched him in silence for a moment. Concerned, she asked if he was feeling better. Sung Ji-ho just gave a slight smile. Relieved, he said she did well. Then, he asked her to play with a cool head from now on. Han-ari then confessed that the request was because she would be the only one to lose her cool. Outside, the professor said goodbye to the team and congratulated everyone for their good work. Before leaving, Soyeon praised Jin Young, saying that his move in the match was super cool. As he said goodbye, Sung Ji-ho waved, leaving Jin Young speechless with the sudden compliment. With the end of the event, the results of each round were displayed. The durations of each match were detailed. Soon after, the victory of Yongju Digital High School was officially declared. Later, Jin Young suggested that he switch characters to avoid motion sickness, but Sung Ji-ho refused the idea. Sung Ji-ho stated that he could give up everything except Spiro, but Jin Young criticized him, saying the character was bad. Jin Young reinforced that no professional player used that champion, which made Sung Ji-ho question how he dared to insult him. Therefore, not understanding, Jin Young recalled that he had been playing for less than a month, but his friend corrected him by mentioning one sword. The mere mention of that name made Jin Young react with frustration. With that, Sung Ji-ho insisted that the two games were the same, despite the graphical differences. He then revealed that Spiro was his old username in the game. The revelation left Jin Young completely speechless. Soon after, he started laughing and asked why anyone would use the name of a character as a nickname. Sung Ji-ho then turned and stated that he was number one in one sword. He continued, explaining that the character returned with the same attributes he had set up in the past. At that moment, Jin Young remembered the character's moves during the match. The memory made him widen his eyes in total surprise. Without hesitation, Jin Young grabbed him and shouted, asking why he was only telling this now. Sung Ji-ho simply replied that it was because he had asked at that moment. He added that he didn't have a real reason for mentioning it before, while Jin Young continued to shout at him. Then, he explained that he still considers himself a novice in sword dress. For this reason, he prefers not to let people know about his former identity for now. Sung Ji-ho reflected that now that one sword was back, the former number one position had taken on a very important meaning for him. Jin Young simply listened to the statement in silence. Soon after, Sung Ji-ho covered his face for a brief moment. Jin Young's expression changed as he finally understood his friend's perspective. Jin Young then conceded and told him to continue playing with the character, but Sung Ji-ho corrected him right away. He explained that characters with special abilities were necessary in team matches of one sword. At first, the meta formation consisted of a tank, a healer, and two damage dealers. Over time, the 1-1-1-1 formation became the main strategy to neutralize the previous composition. Sung Ji-ho recalled that, even preferring solo matches, he always knew the importance of strategy. With that, he confidently declared that utility would soon become the new meta of the game. In the distance, the van from Yongju High School finally left the location. Inside the van, the members of the Yongju High team returned in silence. Breaking the silence, someone called out to Go Mingya. Not understanding, he simply asked what they wanted. The student commented that he thought only their school team used utility players. He then compared the opponent's playstyle to that of one of the veterans on the team. Another player agreed, adding that the opponent's style seemed a bit more aggressive. The comparison sparked a small discussion, with one of the members arguing that the veterans were much better. Go Mingyu just observed the conversation among his teammates. Soon after, he admitted that he didn't know much about the opposing utility player. The rest of the team just started staring. Therefore, with a slight smile, Go Mingyu confessed that he was the one who got hit the most during the match. He then commented that, for a practice match, the opponent was very good. In his room, Sung Ji-ho remained with a determined expression. He searched online for ways to overcome 3D motion sickness, but the only answer he found was to endure it. The lack of a useful solution left him frustrated in front of the computer. Meanwhile, at a PC bang, Shin Woo-jin was preparing for another night of gaming. The venue's system displayed login information and admission times for teenagers. Elsewhere, Soyeon was dedicated to her studies in the classroom. She remembered the match and, with a smile, showed her determination for the next one. In his notebook, Jin-young analyzed strategies and combat tactics for the game. Later, Han-ari was massaging her wrist at home, feeling the fatigue from the intense training. She then began to reflect on Sung Ji-ho and the impact his motion sickness had on the match. Soon after, she shook her head and reprimanded herself for having that kind of thought. Suddenly, her phone began to ring on the table. Han-ari answered the call and heard Chang-hyun asking if it was true that she had been defeated. On the other end of the line, he maintained a teasing tone. He asked for the replay code, wanting to see just how bad her defeat was. Chang-hyun continued laughing about the situation over the phone. Then, his expression changed to a more serious and calculating tone. Soon after, he interrupted the conversation and asked her to listen carefully. In a serious tone, he questioned whether she really didn't want to lose again. Therefore, in front of the computer, Professor Yoon Tae-in concluded his plan. Soon after, he organized the strategy plan with a clip. With the plan in hand, he believed there was now a chance of victory. In his room, Sung Ji-ho reflected on how he overcame lag in one sword, just by sound, but now faced 3D motion sickness. The problem of motion sickness is not strong enough to completely prevent him from playing. On a flat map, the situation becomes bearable, and he can move around. However, on maps where movement is free in all directions, it becomes difficult to endure more than one round. As a result, Sung Ji-ho often needs 1 or 2 rounds to fully recover. The search for a solution to play all 4 rounds becomes his priority, as he won't always be able to fight on flat maps. Without a solution for motion sickness, he knows he will be responsible for his team's defeat. Back at his desk, Sung Ji-ho focuses on the certainty that there must be some way. With his face in his hands, he decides that he can try to adjust just one more time. He then returns to the computer to train, repeating the method he has always used to overcome challenges. The next morning, Sung Ji-ho goes out to the street and hails a taxi that approaches. Upon entering the vehicle, the young man asks the driver to take him to Dano's school. Inside the car, he stares at his phone and decides to start his motion sickness training by reading webtoons. With a determined look, he prepares to put his plan into action. In a sudden movement, he jumps out of the taxi while the driver and another person watch the scene. In the classroom, Jin-young leans back in his chair as he tries to remember the day of the match. A memory surfaces, showing Soyeon praising Jin-young and saying that he was amazing. As Jin-young smiles at the compliment, Sung Ji-ho silently observes him from the side. Another memory shows the moment when Sung Ji-ho handed Jin-young strategy notes for his tank character. Jin-young flips through the notes, concluding that the mistakes he made in the match were not due to a lack of skill. The real reason, he realizes, was not wanting victory as much as the others did. Even though he won't be a substitute player in the next match, he clenches his fist on the table. With that, Jin-young promises himself that he cannot become an obstacle for the club members. Sitting at his desk, Sung Ji-ho looks to the side and calls out Jin-young's name. He wonders if his friend is thinking of something stupid again. In the club room, Chan-hyun offers to lead the meeting, and Professor Yoon Tae-in allows him to proceed. With that, Chan-hyun announces to the team that he himself scheduled the next friendly match. Han-ari questions the quick scheduling, while he simply confirms his responsibility. Then, the young man reveals that he was also the one who organized the previous match, leaving everyone in silence. Yoon Tae-in then explains that, thanks to Chan-hyun, invitations were sent to several schools, and the matches will be scheduled faster. Although surprised, Han-ari asks why he didn't mention it earlier, but he replies that he was busy with the task. One way or another, since he joined the club, he felt he should at least do his part. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho and Jin-young observe the conversation until Chan-hyun shifts the focus of the topic. He soon informs that the next opponents are from Pagak High School, a team eliminated in the preliminaries of last year's national competition. Chan-hyun warns not to underestimate them, as they lost early due to bad luck in the matchups. He then adds that their opponent at that time was Yongju High School. He describes Yongju as a strong defensive team, with 2 of its members being trainees in professional teams. As he stands up, the young man concludes that, in terms of organization, there will not be a match for the opponents. Yoon Tae-in then steps forward with a folder, stating that he watched the replays and prepared new strategies for the team. With a serious look, Chan Hyun turns and says that, honestly, the team's performance in the last match was a mess. He then confronts Hanari about the lack of strategy from the team, but she defends herself by saying there was no time. He then states that, because of the match she scheduled, they lost an opportunity to accumulate important points. Moreover, he adds that the team lost momentum after Sung Ji-ho left, concluding that they have a lot to prepare. With that, Chan Hyun places a folder on the table and declares that this was the last game based on instinct, as they will now use strategy. The young man lifts the folder and reveals it as the first step of his plan, with more details to be sent via PDF. In an instant, he declares that the key to the team's victory is Sung Ji-ho himself. Chan Hyun then addresses his teammate, mentioning that he heard his motion sickness limits him to just one round of play. Sung Ji-ho confirms that, on a map without acceleration, he needs about 10 minutes to recover. With this information, Chan Hyun declares that he is determined and that the team will be reorganized around Ji-ho. His first order is directed at Soyeon and Hanari, who will now play as damage dealers, or DPS. Next, he designates Sung Ji-ho as a utility player, and surprisingly places Shin Woo-jin in the healer role. The instruction for the team is clear: attack with full force as soon as the match begins. Chan Hyun explains the logic, saying that the longer the match lasts, the less time Sung Ji-ho will have to play. The plan is to win the first round, use the second for Ji-ho's recovery, and then come back to win the third. Han-ari and Soyeon react to the complex strategy, and the young woman asks the others not to interpret it negatively. Finally, Chan Hyun states that, as they progress with the friendlies, the goal is to increase points and improve teamwork. Although with a focused look, he reveals that the real competition will be the Swordrush School Competition Cup. Addressing Han-ari, Chan Hyun argues that if the win rate increases with Sung Ji-ho, they should take advantage of it for the club's victory. The main reason for the victory, he explains, is to gain more time for Han-ari herself. In front of the entire team, the young man challenges anyone to present a better plan, if one exists. None of the club members respond to the challenge, remaining silent. Meanwhile, Shin Woo-jin simply observes the discussion with his arms crossed. After a brief reflection, Jin-young admits to himself that Chang Hyun's logic is correct. Soyeon also begins to process the new game mechanics that the strategy imposes. Soon, Han-ari agrees, recognizing that her time to become a professional player is running out. Sung Ji-ho also understands that this is the most logical way to utilize the team's current strengths. With that, Shin Woo-jin intervenes and declares that he fully agrees with the plan, surprising everyone. The player with crossed arms admits that Chan Hyun is speaking the truth. He then suggests that they use this period to increase their individual tiers. Shortly after, he comments that he is not the one who will get sick and that if they lose, the blame will be on Sung Ji-ho anyway. Han-ari remains silent, merely observing the decision being made. With that, Soyeon states that if the others agree with the plan, she is also on board. She explains that, even being a versatile player, she felt her skills were still insufficient and did not want to be a burden. In his thoughts, Professor Yoon Taein admits that everything Chang Hyun said is true. The strategy for victory, which prioritizes the effective use of the team's strength, makes him question whether Chan Hyun is really just a student. Seeing that there are no complaints, he formalizes the strategy and asks everyone to do a good job. As soon as the meeting ends, the students bid farewell to the professor and wish him to be careful on his way home. While organizing his materials, the professor accidentally drops a stack of papers on the floor. Yoon Taein rushes to help him gather the scattered documents. Upon picking up one of the strategy reports, Sung Ji-ho is surprised by what he sees. The professor then explains that those were the strategies he had created himself, but he considered them less effective than Chang Hyun's. Sung Ji-ho continues to flip through the report, looking closely at the notes. A memory of his motion sickness crosses his mind as he finds something important in the papers. Suddenly, the boy stands up and comments that he has found the solution, leaving everyone around confused. The scene shifts to the internet cafe during sunset. Sung Ji-ho and Jin-young rush in a hurry. The manager of the place simply observes in silence. With the professor's notes in hand, Sung Ji-ho explains that they now have a solution to cover their weaknesses. Jin-young then declares with conviction that this time he will be properly prepared for the match. Stating that it is always better to have more strategies, the young man assures that they will not lose again. Then, Jin-young tells his friend to connect quickly, and he sits in front of the computer. Nearby, an unknown hooded player adjusts his headphones. Soon, the young man questions why the noise around him is so loud. Turning around, he recognizes the uniforms and identifies the newcomers as being from Dano College. Jin-young comments to Sung Ji-ho that they can easily defeat a team that failed in the preliminaries. However, his expression changes as he begins to speak specifically about Pagak College. In an instant, the hooded player grabs Jin-young by the vest from behind. Sung Ji-ho turns in his chair upon noticing the sudden action and what is happening. With that, the aggressor approaches Jin-young and challenges him to repeat what he just said. As soon as he realizes the situation, Sung Ji-ho stammers the name, Pagak. Meanwhile, the student introduces himself as the main DPS of Pagak College, still holding Jin-young. Shortly after, the colleague intervenes, asking to resolve the situation with words. explaining that they were just trying to motivate themselves. At that moment, Jin Young quickly apologizes and states that he did not know the player was sitting next to them. With the confusion, a staff member approaches and asks if something is happening. However, the Pogik student ignores the question and pushes Jin Young away. Then, the young man steps back and returns to the computer, while the other two just watch. For a few seconds, the friends remain silent. With a can of soda in hand, Jin Young goes back to the Pogik player to reinforce his apology. This time, the young man is surprised by such a direct approach. Shortly after, Jin Young admits that he would have been irritated in the same situation, while his partner reinforces the request. With that, the Pogik student agrees and also apologizes for grabbing the shirt so suddenly. Calmly, Jin Young responds that it's no problem, reminding him that the time for summer uniforms will soon arrive. At that moment, the Pogik boy turns his face away, revealing his weakness in the face of apologies. To provide context, Jin Young comments that his school's reputation in esports has declined in recent years, which has led to teasing from other schools. Holding the can tightly, the Pogik student admits that he has been more sensitive lately. Soon after, he clarifies that, although he doesn't care about studies, he cannot tolerate insults to his gaming skills. Upon hearing the explanation, Jin Young simply nods in understanding. Next, the boy apologizes once again and offers a pack of snacks. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho reflects on the existence of a school specialized in gaming. With a new idea in mind, he approaches and suggests that everyone should play together. The Pogik student then considers the fact that they are on opposing teams. Without thinking much, the young man accepts the request. Immediately, the sudden idea leaves Jin Young surprised at the thought of playing with the Pogik school team. Already settled at a computer, the boy explains that he invited them to play on the same team. In the next scene, Professor Yoon Tae-in appears working at his desk. With his hand on his chin, he reflects on the situation of his team. After a few minutes, he concludes that the team urgently needs to improve teamwork. As he researches pro gamer academies, he decides that he will do whatever it takes for his students. With this in mind, Yoon Tae-in focuses on arranging a steady flow of training partners for the team. Back at the internet cafe, the Pogik player is surprised to see Sung Ji-ho choose the character Spiro. At that moment, he suspects that it might just be a trick to hide strategies and decides to do the same. Finally, with a smile, Sung Ji-ho reveals that this is his favorite character, leaving the opponent even more confused. As the match begins, Sung Ji-ho gets excited, expressing his enthusiasm for playing with the DPS from a famous school. Soon after, Jin Young suggests that his friend choose a different character, and he agrees under the watchful eye of the Pogik player. On the screen, the opposing team appears, ready for the confrontation about to begin. Meanwhile, the three analyze the enemy formation, which follows the current meta of 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. Cunningly, Jin Young then asks what composition they themselves are using in the match. Almost revealing the strategy, the Pogik student interrupts his speech upon noticing that he has fallen into a trap. Inside the game, the team's characters perform an agile leap from one building to another. At that moment, Jin Young alerts his team that the enemy DPS has disappeared from sight. Noticing the movement, he shouts for everyone to focus on protecting the healer. Immediately, Sung Ji-ho and his teammate confirm the order, preparing their characters for action. At the same time, Jin Young questions whether he has the authority to give orders to a Grandmaster, and also to Ji-ho. As the tension rises, everyone rushes toward the city. With a precise move, the Pogik student's character attacks the enemy DPS in midair. The impact is effective, catching the opponent completely by surprise. With the opponent immobilized, the teammate creates space for the next attack. Soon after, Ji-ho's character appears and strikes against the enemy. Surprised by the speed of his allies' arrival, the Pogik boy watches the scene closely. Next, the fighter orders them to use the attack skill as soon as it is available. With an agile spin, she advances and hits the enemy DPS directly. Soon after, her weapon transforms into a serpent that lunges at the opponent. The creature attacks, but the blow is blocked by the enemy's weapon. Taking advantage of the opening, the teammate prepares his offensive. The attack hits squarely, resulting in a massive explosion. In light of this, the Pogik player concludes that Ji-ho can handle the DPS alone and that it would be better to retreat to support the tank. With a firm look, he shouts for his ally to finish off the opponent immediately. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho's character runs across the rooftops, anticipating that Jin Young will be in danger and deciding to go ahead. Upon seeing her approach, Jin Young warns that he was already expecting her, but the ally continues without responding. From a distance, the Pogik student observes the enemy team focusing their attacks on the tank. At that moment, he questions how a player without a ranking, coming from a new team, can have such skill. The impressive performance leaves him confused and unable to understand the situation. The scene shifts to Pogik College on a sunny day. Inside a classroom, a student is sound asleep at his desk. Soon after, a classmate arrives and wakes him up with an enthusiastic "Good morning." Annoyed, the young man complains about his presence and the way he was called, but is completely ignored. With his face turned away, the young man clearly shows irritation at the insistence. Without lifting his head, he asks why the other is making so much noise again. Finally, the Pogak player reveals that their next opponent is Dano College, a new team from an academic school. With a serious expression, he concludes that, despite appearances, there is a very dangerous player on that team. Still leaning on the desk, the student responds with a simple, "Yes?" Shortly after, while yawning, he sits up and questions what his classmate meant by that. Next, the young man looks him directly in the eye and asks if that player is better than him. Immediately, the Pogak member denies it, mentally comparing his own strength to the opponent's weakness. Then, the student reflects on all the fuss made over a simple high school team. Finally, with a confident smile, the Pogak classmate declares himself the most dangerous, questioning if anyone could surpass the 125th in the one-sword ranking. Even though the day is beautiful outside, life is not a bed of roses. Thus, a student recalls that, although he was not on the same level as Youngju, the school was an icon in esports. He dreamed of studying there to play alongside his seniors, whom he admired so much. 4 years ago, that was his sincere wish, albeit somewhat childish. However, the Pogak team, which carried so many expectations, performed disastrously. During the school competition of LOL, they failed in the preliminaries for the first time in history. With disappointment, many talented students began to transfer to other games, like Swordrush. The current leader of the Swordrush team turns out to be the younger brother of the player considered the loser of that time. Over time, he found a game in which he excelled and, last year, participated in the coveted school cup. As he walks with his team, the young man reflects on recent events. At that moment, he looks back, remembering the path taken up to that point. Unfortunately, they lost to their great rival, Youngju College, in the competition. Even with the defeat, the group's hope was not shaken, and everyone moved forward. The student's motivation is not something grand, like revenge or the pursuit of status. With a determined look, he reveals that his only wish is to bring Pogak College back to the top. Soon after, a classmate approaches the main player and calls him Lord Rank 125. With his arm on his shoulder, he asks him to teach him, as he believes he can make his dreams come true. At this moment, Pogak's DPS is revealed to be rank 125 in one sword and 313 in Swordrush. During the conversation, the companion confirms that Dano's DPS used an unranked account and moved faster than expected. The Pogak young man explains that he was also on a secondary account, but the opponent was superior in decision-making. The student then questions the teamwork of Dano's team, which he noticed was not very good. With that, Pogak's main healer suggests that the lack of synergy would make sense if they were former one-sword players. Another member counters, saying that having played one sword does not prevent anyone from working as a team. The DPS defends himself, while the classmate sarcastically provokes him about the incredible former one-sword players. At this point, the healer confronts him, asking how long he will brag about a ranking when only 300 players remained. Irritated, the young man retorts that the game is not dead, but only 300 managed to reach the end. After the outburst, the Pogak young man admits that he makes mistakes when he gets too excited. The healer warns him that if he does not correct this habit, he will continue to fall for the opposing team's provocations. He finishes the warning by reminding him that the team plays with 2 healers and that if he dies, everyone loses. Calmer, the Pogak student apologizes, while the classmate gives him a pat on the head. Finally, the tank confidently assures that no one will die under his protection. With the decision to train, the team agrees to start the match immediately. Soon after, the scene shifts to Changhyun's house, showing the building where he lives. Meanwhile, in a game recording, 2 characters face off in an aerial combat. Next, the match video is paused and analyzed in a media player. Upon observing closely, Changhyun realizes that this is the complete recording of the first round. With that, he compares Jiho's perspective to a highlight video of another player. Each time he watches the play, the level of skill continues to surprise him. Even slowing down the playback, he can still notice the incredible technique displayed. Thus, he concludes that, even with the advantage of the former one-sword players, that level could not be reached so quickly. At that moment, he realizes that the other video is a montage of a former one-sword player who migrated to Swordrush. Soon, the screen shows the character from the video in focus, along with various comments from other users. In silence, Chahyun reflects as he processes the new information discovered. After his analysis, he concludes that Sung Jiho will not lose. Therefore, he believes that as long as they have Jiho, everything will go as planned. Back at the internet cafe, the match continues. At that moment, Han Ari and Soyeon remain completely focused on the game. With her weapon in hand, Han Ari's character prepares for combat. Soon after, the opponent charges at her with a direct strike. However, another character quickly intervenes and grabs him with his hands. Even at a disadvantage, the enemy tries to retaliate with another blow. With momentum, he is grabbed by the head and thrown to the ground. As they continue playing, Soyeon takes the opportunity to ask Han Ari if her studies are going well. However, Han Ari asks them not to talk about that subject. In light of her reaction, Soyeon quickly apologizes for the comment. Continuing with the battle, she starts to ask about sword. At that moment, the defeated character is held by the neck. Firmly, Han-Ari prepares for an attack. She soon responds that, with the end of the game, the forum also disappeared without a trace. Then, the two finish off the opponent and acknowledge the incredible skill of the former one-sword players. Thus, Han-Ari comments that Chanhyun also seems interested, but only to find something that can provoke her. Next, she turns to Soyeon and asks about a boy from Pagak High School who studies with her. Soyeon confirms the information, adding that Pagak's swordrush team is stronger than they imagined. During the match, she also reveals that their first-year DPS is an incredible boy. Han-Ari then questions the information, doubting the skill of someone who was just a middle school student not long ago. Soon, Soyeon explains that predictions place Pagak in the semifinals because of this player, who led the team to win friendly matches 3-0. In light of this, Han-Ari admits that they seem to be very good. Next, she quickly finishes off another opponent. With that, she declares in a firm voice that she will crush all their skulls. Upon hearing the statement, Soyeon closes her eyes for a moment. With that, she asks Han-Ari to be more careful with how she speaks. After all, it is precisely for this reason that everyone misunderstands her. A few days later, Sung Jiho arrives at the cyber cafe where the friendly match between Dano and Pagak schools will take place. Soon after, he looks around the place, being the second to arrive for the event. Thus, he notices that Han-Ari is already there, having been the first to arrive. Next, the boy greets her and asks if she came early, to which she replies that she wanted to warm up her hands in advance. In light of his excitement, the captain merely nods briefly. With that, Jiho says he has something to give her, making her ask if it's drinks again. Such a gesture sparks Ari's curiosity about what he suddenly brought. 30 minutes later, Jin Yong and Shin Woojin finally arrive, with the friend calling out for Sung Jiho. Already seated next to his colleague, he greets Jin Yong as soon as he approaches the chair. Right behind, Jiho refers to him as local, prompting Woojin to question the nickname. Even without understanding, the newcomer simply invites everyone to warm up their hands for the match. As he prepares, Jiho silently observes Woojin for a moment. At that instant, the members of the Pagak school team enter the establishment. One of the opposing students soon complains on his phone that Shin Jae-duk is late again. With that, the captain of Pagak, Lee Toon, is introduced. Soon after, he introduces himself as the team leader and extends his hand, asking who the captain of Dano is. Although Jin Yong tries to show off, Toon ignores him and says he is not referring to him. From her chair, Ari turns and states that she is the captain. Next, the girl asks everyone to take it easy on them during the friendly match. With a smile, the captain replies that this will not be easy. Nearby, Jiho notices that the player he had met at the cybercafe is not present. Toon then turns to his teammates who are already seated. His expression subtly changes, revealing that his emotions are easily affected. While one of his colleagues shakes his head, the other calls him an idiot. One of the Dano members observes the reaction closely. At that moment, Professor Yuntain arrives with the rest of the club, relieved that they are not late. He soon greets everyone, who respond positively around him. With that, Yuntain suggests they gather as a true sports team. However, the idea leaves some of the students a bit embarrassed. Thus, Soyeon encourages them to participate, arguing that it will be a good memory for everyone. With her encouragement, the Dano members join hands while Jiho shouts that they will win. While Ari covers her face, Chahyun refuses to participate because he is not a player. Soon after, he watches the scene with a confused expression. With that, Han-Ari glances at Jiho, who continues to smile beside her. Even without understanding, the professor simply calls the boys' attention to get ready. Then, everyone gathers in a circle and prepares for the war cry, with Jiho stating that he wants to win. After the countdown, Team Dano shouts, "Fight!" while a member of the opposing team watches from afar. With that, the young man laments that Shin Jae-duk is late once again. At the same time, he reflects that Toon has been very tolerant with his teammate. Meanwhile, the captain of Pagak talks about having children, leaving his companions speechless. Soon, the map for the match is revealed as the Pillar of Lament. Next, the rules are announced. Elimination mode 4v4, with victory going to the first team to score 3 points. The composition of Team Dano is shown, while Ari and Soyeon comment that they missed playing together. On the other side, the opposing team prepares with their formation, while Toon instructs them to play as they had trained. Already in the game, Jiho observes that they followed the 2 DPS strategy prepared by Chanhyun. At that moment, he realizes that everyone is sacrificing themselves for him during the match. With that, he decides that he does not want to become a burden to his team. On the other side, Toon shouts excitedly for the fight to begin. As soon as the match starts, the opponent makes his move. Ari's character soon notices that the rival team is using 2 healers. Faced with the strategy, she questions whether they plan to prolong the fight on purpose. Shortly after, Taehun's character charges at one of the healers and announces that he has taken one down. Jiho's avatar, however, activates its counterattack and blocks the blow. Surprised by the defense, the opponent praises the skills shown in the game. Suddenly, Woojin shouts a warning for everyone to look up. At that moment, a shadow appears from the top of the tower and begins to fall towards them. With a strong impact, the Pagak tank lands in the middle of the arena. The character that arrived then declares that as long as he is standing in battle, no one should think of laying a finger on the healers or the DPS of his team. He then concludes by stating that the one who protects the team is the captain. Jiho soon realizes that the two healer strategy is a counterattack to their plan, making their damage less effective. With that, he remembers that the change in tactics was made to adapt to his playstyle. In a flashback, Chanhyun explains to Ari that Jiho's high win rate should be leveraged, as the club needs to win. In the explanation, the strategist concludes by saying that the goal is to give Ari more time during the matches. Back in the present, the captain simply orders Jiho to attack. She then questions him about what he is doing, as he should have advanced from the start. Next, she tells Jiho to wake up and follow the strategy that was defined for the team. Faced with the hesitation, the Pogok tank advances with his axes raised. As soon as his character starts to move, Ari shouts for him to go. With that, her avatar intercepts the blow from the opposing tank. Toon then taunts, asking where they think they are going, while his character attacks. In response, Jiho's character advances and manages to counterattack the blow from the Pogok captain. With the match underway, Soyeon comments that if the fight drags on, Jiho won't need to exert himself as much. Soon after, Ari ignores the comment and asks if Woojin can defeat a healer on his own. With a confident smile, the young man replies that he can even take down two of them. Next, the captain instructs him to attack the opponent he dislikes the most as soon as she gives the signal, without worrying about healing. Excited by the new order, Woojin declares to forget the strategy and go for the fight. At that moment, Jiho calls for Soyeon, mentioning the signal that Ari will give soon. With a smile, the healer asks if he is going to tell her to advance, to which he confirms. The young man's eyes fix on the screen, waiting for the right moment to act. As soon as the spark ability is available, Ari signals to use it immediately. With that, Jiho and Soyeon prepare to execute the coordinated play. Determined, the captain declares that she will crush her opponents in her own way. Jiho's avatar advances and lands a direct hit on the opposing team's tank. Surprised by the move, Toon admits that it's the first time he's seen a combo like that. In trouble, the tank player shouts for healing, claiming he is being pushed back. One of the enemy healers then reassures him, telling him not to worry, as there are two of them on the team. Unexpectedly, Woojin's character advances and positions himself between the two enemy healers. The sudden action surprises the opponents, who wonder why their healer is on the front line. With that, the avatar questions whether healers really need to stay in the back. Faced with the strategy, Woojin simply taunts his adversaries with an insult. Adapting, Ari asks them to attack from both sides. At that moment, another avatar arrives and intercepts her, saying she won't get through. As he finishes the sentence, he receives a powerful blow. The other healer from Pogok then warns not to let their guard down and casts a spell. The avatar reacts with frustration to the effect of the healing magic. With that, he advances again with his weapon drawn to attack Ari's character. She, however, manages to block the blow and counterattack. Even while defending, the captain appears surprised by the opponent's skill. Next, she shouts for Soyeon to aim for the enemy team's healer. Jiho explains that to win, they need to focus on the DPS so he can't protect his healer. With the new strategy, the guy states that if they can kill the enemy DPS, they will have the advantage to win. Soyeon then turns to Ari and says she has wanted to play with her for a long time. Shortly after, the captain agrees with a smile and declares that they will take out their DPS first. With that, their characters split up to attack the opponent. Soon, the avatar tries to protect itself from the simultaneous blows. Outside the game, Chanhyun and the others watch the match closely. In a coordinated attack, the two unleash energy blasts simultaneously at the same target. The attacks quickly approach the opponent. Soon after, a large explosion of energy occurs in the center of the arena, completely engulfing the opponent. Meanwhile, Woojin's avatar attacks the healers of the Pogok team. Seeing the scene, Yoon Taein and Jin Yoon look at the screen completely surprised. Next, Ari and Soyeon activate a combined ability with their characters. After the final attack, the enemy is defeated. Thus, the battle unfolds with the remaining characters facing off in the center of the arena. At that moment, the energies of both teams clash in a symbolic emblem in the air. With the impact, the two healers from Pogok are thrown back. Outside the game, Ari and Soyeon smile as a column of energy rises on the screen. Soon after, Chanhyun watches closely as the energy destroys a protective barrier in the game. Jiho's avatar then lands on the remains of the enemy tank, which shatters on the ground. With the play completed, his character stands victorious amidst the smoke. Next, Jiho celebrates the victory with a shout, while the screen displays the word victory. On the other side, the members of Pogok watch the result in silence. At that moment, Jae-Duck finally arrives and apologizes for being late. Immediately, one of his colleagues reprimands him for being late on match day. With that, Toon places a hand on his teammate's shoulder to calm him down. Soon after, the captain tells Jae-Duck not to be late again and just to sit down. Next, another team member hands the headset to the newcomer. As he takes the equipment, the boy apologizes once again for what happened. Shortly after, one of the Pogok players warns that he will talk to him later and announces that their secret weapon has arrived. With that, Toon declares that they will go all out in the next match. Meanwhile, Professor Yoon Taein celebrates the victory, congratulating the students on their great work. In the meantime, Chanhyun just observes the scene while fiddling with his phone. Next, Jiho gets up from his chair and starts walking toward one of his friends. As he approaches, he extends his hand and asks if Jin Young hasn't forgotten their agreement. With a smile, the boy responds to the gesture and gives him a strong high five. Soon after, he confirms that he hasn't forgotten anything. As soon as he sees the scene, Chanhyun begins to talk about the strategy he devised for the team. However, Yoon Tae-in interrupts him, explaining that the outcome is not always decided by strategy. Soon after, he adds that players can also decide how to play. Despite being worried, the young man is reassured by the teacher, who still praises him for his analysis. With that, Chanhyun states that if they can't win this way, it doesn't make sense, and that next time he will prepare something more certain. Next, Yoon Tae-in asks Sung Ji-ho how he is feeling after the match. With a smile, the master hands him a bottle of water and congratulates him on a job well done. As Jin Young sits in his place, the coach comments that he will do a good job prolonging the match. Promptly, Sung Ji-ho replies that, of course, he fully trusts his friend for the task. Additionally, he adds that he also trusts the teacher to guide them in the competition. Moved by the statement, Yoon Tae-in thanks the young man with tears in his eyes. On the other hand, the Japanese player admits that Team Dano is much better than he imagined. One of his teammates soon complains that the problem was not the healing, but rather the aggressiveness of the opponents. In light of this, Lee Tae-ho questions whether they will continue complaining, since the first round was only to observe. The young man further states that the defeat was due to a lack of damage, but with Jae-duck joining, they can win. He then admits that the opponent's dominance was good, but not to the point of being unbeatable. With that, he says he will take care of the rear guard and tells the team to advance against the opponents. As soon as the next round begins, Team Pogak positions itself with its new attack formation. Determined, Soyeon advances, aware that she needs to act before their strategy is discovered. Soon, she states that they need to seize the moment to turn the game in their favor. Still, Shin Woo-jin questions the tactic of buying time, insisting that they should be playing to win. In the face of doubt, Soyeon encourages Jin Young, saying that he is the most important and asking him to play well like last time. Motivated by the compliment, the boy promises himself that this time will be different from the last. He then focuses, remembering that he read the strategy notebook to the end and even practiced for the match. During the game, one of the opponents shouts and rushes to attack one of Team Dano's members. Suddenly, the avatar speeds past him, catching him by surprise. The character then attacks the spot where the enemy was, but discovers that he is no longer there. At that moment, the opponent appears from behind, taunting him for falling for such a basic trick. With a smile, Shin Jae-duck calls him mineral, belittling his skill in the game. Amid the battle, Soyeon shouts for Jin Young as her character dodges an attack. Finally, Lee Toon reprimands him for taking his eyes off the confrontation. Thus, Jin Young's character tries to time his movements against the enemy DPS. Even so, the opponent manages to hit him with a blow. Faced with the onslaught, he realizes he is no match for the adversary. Soon after, he receives healing from his allies to stay in the fight. At that moment, Shin Woo-jin curses him, complaining that he is making it difficult to keep him alive. Still, Jin Young observes that the DPS's attack pattern is unique, but not impossible to block. Upon hearing the hesitation, Han Ari shouts for him not to be afraid if he can defend himself. Meanwhile, Shin Jae-duck taunts Team Dano, even as his characters are hit by several attacks. Not understanding the provocation, the warrior remains focused on the fight. At that moment, the enemy DPS advances and receives a powerful blow as a bonus, losing health. Quickly, Soyeon instructs Jin Young to draw the DPS's attention so that Han Ari can advance. Following the new order, the character jumps toward the other side of the battle. As the healer casts a skill, he receives a cloth as a gift to silence him. With a smile, Shin Woo-jin thanks the opponent for being caught, as he was annoyed at having to wait. Seizing the opportunity, Jin Young runs toward his partner to initiate the attack. Upon hearing the order to catch him, Han Ari confirms the command and advances alongside her teammate. The opposing healer then quickly retreats, while the character prepares to attack. Next, the player realizes that his team's tank side is completely empty. Lee Toon quickly warns him not to fight alone and to fall back, as the healers find themselves exposed in the arena. With that, Shin Woo-jin complains that the enemy should be fighting against him. Suddenly, the tank from Team Pogak lands a powerful blow to stop being foolish. At the same time, Soyeon realizes she has lost sight of the enemy DPS amid the chaos of battle. Soon after, the healer player complains that the opposing DPS won't stop chasing him around the arena. Meanwhile, Han Ari focuses on the opponent, calling him a slippery bastard. At this moment, Lee Toon shouts for Jae-duck to keep fighting, as he needs to let the DPS act freely. With a smile, Shin Jae-duck thanks him, already preparing for his move. Soon after, the shadow of his character looms threateningly over Jin Young's. As Chanhyun and Yoon Tae-in watch anxiously, Sung Ji-ho reacts upon seeing his friend in danger on the screen. With that, Jin Young focuses on the exact timing to execute his next play. The sudden action, however, leaves Shin Jae-duck surprised by what is about to happen. At that moment, a character silhouette emerges amidst a bright light and charges at the opponent. In front of the scene, Sung Ji-ho is taken aback. With no time to lose, Jae-duck activates hack mode, pressing everything at once. His character then unleashes a flurry of blows that hits the opponent squarely. By spamming attacks, he leaves the avatar with only 1 health point. Meanwhile, Hanari realizes she is unable to get close to the opposing team's DPS. Soon, the player notices that Jin Young has finally been defeated in the confrontation. Faced with the situation, Jae-duck announces that he will use his ultimate ability. Then, Hanari is hit by the devastating technique. For some reason, the young man appears visibly tense in his chair. With that, Lee Toon shouts in frustration, questioning what he is doing in the middle of the match. The avatar controlled by Jae-duck then advances and strikes him with a devastating blow, finishing off the opponent. Soon after, Chan-hyun checks the match time on his phone, which reads 8 minutes and 52 seconds. In light of the result, he admits to himself that the team's performance wasn't bad at all. With Dano's defeat in the second round, Professor Yoon Tae-in congratulates everyone for their good work, despite the overall frustration. Next, Chan-hyun approaches Sung Ji-ho, who is sitting in his place. Shortly after, the professor also joins them and asks how he is feeling. Instead of responding, the boy places his hand on Jin Young's shoulder and asks if he can play. He then congratulates his friend on the great job and encourages him to prepare for the next match. At that moment, Sung Ji-ho turns with a determined expression on his face. With everyone paying attention, he receives the focused gaze of his professor. Finally, he declares that this time he wants to switch places with Hanari. After the second round, Lee Toon celebrates with his team and encourages them to keep up the pace. One of his teammates, however, reprimands Shin Jae-duck, saying they would have won the first round if he hadn't been late. With a tired expression, the young man simply apologizes for what happened. Toon then defends him but warns that he won't let him play if he is late again. At that moment, one of the Pogik players notices that the captain of Team Dano seems to be out for the next match. With that, he questions the reason for the substitution, as she had been playing well until then. On the other side, Hanari reacts with surprise to Sung Ji-ho's proposal to switch places with her. As he stares at her, she continues to look at him, not understanding the situation. Now standing, the young woman stares at her own bandaged hand in light of the unexpected request. Even without understanding, Ji-ho states that he has something prepared with Jin Young and that they will surely win. With a determined look, he simply asks her to trust him. Professor Yoon Tae-in then questions her decision, but Hanari interrupts him and says she will sit out. Faced with the insistence, she admits that she doesn't know what Ji-ho is planning. She then turns to him and warns him to do it right, as she will be taking her place. With a smile, the boy responds with an enthusiastic yes, accepting the responsibility. As soon as the third round begins, Jin Young's character charges alone against the opposing team. As he runs, he wonders what Ji-ho is thinking, since the only order was to advance. With that, the Pogik tank intercepts him, confirming that he would become the main target. At that moment, Sung Ji-ho's character quickly passes by him towards the enemy's rear. The sudden maneuver leaves Jin Young completely surprised by the strategy. Even without understanding, his avatar manages to block the tank's attack, finding it easier than facing a DPS. Faced with the new threat, he questions what is happening in the match. On the other side, Lee Toon asks where Ji-ho thinks he is going with that charge. Soon after, Shin Woo-jin's character blocks the path of the enemy tank. With that, Toon realizes that their plan is to distract the tanks to attack the rear. He then shouts a warning to Jae-duck, informing him that Dano's team DPS has managed to get through. The warning, however, leaves Jae-duck visibly surprised and unresponsive. Seeing the response, Toon wonders why he is acting that way. Jae-duck's expression only becomes more confusing as the match unfolds. Soon after, Ji-ho's character manages to block and counter the opponent's DPS attack. With the unexpected defense, Jae-duck questions what is happening in the match. As a result, a large explosion of energy occurs in the center of the arena between the two characters. Sung Ji-ho then recognizes the off-rhythm combo that his opponent is using. Even without understanding, Jae-duck wonders what kind of feeling that is during the fight. With that, Ji-ho's character slides across the ground, demonstrating precise reaction time. Shin Jae-duck then realizes that this is the first time this has happened since he started playing Swordrush. Soon after, he concludes that his opponent is simply better than him at the game. Faced with the situation, his character charges forward for a desperate attack, until he remembers the ranking 125 of the game, one sword. With that, the opponent activates his special ability, the Red Moonlight Storm. In an agile maneuver, Sung Ji-ho's avatar jumps back and dodges the blow. The perfect dodge leaves Shin Jae-duck completely unresponsive in front of the screen. Next, Ji-ho's character's eyes shine, as if provoking the opponent. With a smile, he prepares to finish the play and secure the victory. Jae-duck screams in frustration, while Lee Tae-ho reprimands him for not following the team's orders. Suddenly, the opposing healer charges forward and launches an attack, catching Jae-duck's character by surprise. With that, Tae-ho explains that he and the other healer have trapped the enemy tank and support, giving their team an advantage. He then asks Jae-duck to trust Junho and not be afraid, receiving an immediate confirmation. Outside the game, Hanari watches the match completely surprised. The healer taunts him about losing his composure, making him realize that Jiho's character will follow him. Faced with the situation, Jae-duck decides he needs to fight the utility character first, and jumps away. Next, Sung Jiho informs Soyeon that he will draw the attention of the enemy DPS so she can take care of the healer. His avatar quickly advances and lands a direct hit on the opponent. Even hit, Jae-duck's character prepares for the next attack. With that, Jiho realizes that the opponent has regained his composure and remains calm even under pressure. He then remembers the enemy's special ability, the Red Moonlight Storm. Seeing the silhouette of the technique, he recognizes that the opponent has improved since their last confrontation. With that, Jae-duck believes he can finish off the low defense character with his ultimate ability. Sung Jiho then informs Soyeon that he will use his ultimate, leaving her surprised by the sudden decision. He quickly explains that he will use his super counterattack ability as soon as the rival uses his. With that, Soyeon confirms that her own techniques are also ready to be used at the right moment. In the game, the two characters face each other, while Jae-duck asserts that even professionals cannot dodge his ultimate. Then, both activate their ultimate abilities at the same time. Jae-duck's character is enveloped by an intense light as he prepares for the final blow. On the other side, Jiho watches the scene with a surprised expression on his face. Unexpectedly, his avatar charges forward at high speed, sliding across the ground. With a quick movement, he propels himself alongside the opponent, leaving a trail behind. The sudden play leaves Jae-duck completely shocked and speechless. With the super counterattack activated, Jiho's character strikes the enemy hard with a powerful blow. The impact sends Jae-duck's character flying away, completely defeated. In his chair, he remains paralyzed, staring at the completely white screen. With the match concluded, he merely whispers the name of Sung Jiho's character, Spiro, as soon as the screen displays the word victory. The Dano team celebrates the result with a cheer. Right after the victory, Sung Jiho rushes past Jin-young towards the opposing team. The sudden action leaves everyone confused, not understanding what he intends to do. Then, he grabs Shin Jae-duck's arm and states that they need to talk. With that, Sung Jiho pulls him close and shouts the name of his special ability, the Red Moonlight Storm. Faced with the scene, Shin Jae-duck feels completely awkward as he is held by him. In a memory, Sung Jiho had used a motion sickness sticker, so he was in his best condition. Thanks to that, his impeccable performance made the final confrontation end in the blink of an eye. As a result, the Pavik school team was completely perplexed in front of their computers after the defeat. Later, they were seen in a diner, reflecting on the outcome of the match. As Sung Jiho's team left the place, a brief thought about the opponent's situation arose among them. However, the reflection was soon interrupted when Jin-young began to shout and celebrate the victory in the middle of the street. His contagious joy quickly took over the environment, overshadowing any other feelings. Thus, the team's first victory in just 2 matches brought visible relief to all the members. From that moment of happiness, everything seemed to change for the future of the esports club. Meanwhile, in his office, the school principal was reviewing some documents and stated that the students had talent. Then, Professor Yoon-tae requested permission for the students to use the club room until later. The principal listened to the entire argument in silence. Soon after, he questioned the professor about the students' grades involved in the club. Yoon-tae explained that, with the exception of 2, the others were performing only at an average level. After the response, the principal remained silent, processing the information received. Then, he imposed the condition that if the grades of more than 1 student fell in the upcoming tests, the club's activities would be terminated. He added that, although he understood the professor's feelings, he did not wish to hinder the students' dreams. With that, the principal reminded him of his responsibility as an educator and demanded that he also take on the task of providing tutoring. The new condition left Yoon-tae worried as he thought of the faces of the team members. Already outside the office, he thanked aloud for the opportunity granted. The next day, in the club room, Han-ari commented that everyone had worked hard in the previous match. Soon after, she questioned her colleagues about their tired appearances, as, in her view, they had done nothing but sleep. Jin-young justified himself, explaining that his heart was very agitated and that was why he ended up sleeping late. His explanation was met with a look of total distrust from Han-ari. Still, he continued to show off, questioning what to do with so much talent while watching a replay. A scene from the previous night revealed Jin-young dreaming of his character and laughing contentedly while he slept. In response to her reaction, Sung Jiho commented that he also went to bed late because he was reviewing the match. At home, he was seen analyzing in detail the strengths and weaknesses of the opponents in a notebook. Soon after, Shin Woo-jin, looking exhausted, stated that he never said he would sleep early. Then, a memory showed that he spent the entire night playing in a gaming cafe until the staff asked him to leave. He then lamented not having been able to eliminate one more opponent in the match. Back in the club room, Han-ari commented that she would only trust the boys if they were the type to listen. At that moment, Soyeon justified that they were probably as agitated as she was, who could barely sleep thinking about the match. In the blink of an eye, the girl confirmed her theory with a rhetorical question. Thus, Sung Ji-ho and Jin Young agreed at the same time, happy to finally be understood. With that, the conversation shifted focus when Soyeon asked Han Ari what she had done the night before. Soon a memory revealed the captain in her room, thinking about a professional player and an old match. Gradually, her thoughts turned to someone very focused during a heated confrontation. She remained seated in front of the computer, with a fixed and thoughtful gaze. Next to her, Chang-hyun asked if she was upset that they hadn't used their tactics correctly. Without averting her gaze, she responded with another question, wanting to know why he left first the day before. At that moment, the boy remembered the scene where Sung Ji-ho pulled Shin Jae-duk aside for a conversation. The memory showed Jae-duk asking for silence while being held by the shoulders. With the reaction, the boy quickly tried to confirm if he had also been an old player of the same game. Soon after, he hugged him tightly and celebrated the reunion since the end of One Sword. Still hugging, he declared that he couldn't believe he had found someone he used to play with in the past. With that, Jae-duk asked him if he was Spiro, the famous player who even surpassed professionals. With a confident smile, the confirmation of the old identity came. Even without understanding, Jae-duk asked how he could recognize him since they had only played one match. The other replied with a slight smile that he could never forget who challenged him the most throughout his journey in the old game. In light of the revelation, Jae-duk simply said it was a pleasure to finally meet him. Then, Ji-ho apologized for the exaggerated reaction, justifying that he was just very happy about the reunion. Still surprised, the rival accepted the apologies and stated that he also did not expect that. He then commented that everyone was curious about player number 1 and praised him for being so young. Finally, he asked why he hadn't played Swordrush until now, receiving the response that he didn't even know the game existed. Next, Ji-ho explained that he couldn't play because his computer was bad and he ran out of options after One Sword ended. Soon after, he praised his former rival, saying that he had evolved a lot and that his performance was incredible. Upon receiving the compliment, he breaks into a wide and confident smile. He then asks his rival what he thought of his performance, commenting that he still feels a bit below his previous level. During the conversation, Sung Ji-ho reflects that his skills are a bit weak, while Jae-duk offers help. With that, the young man asks for his phone number so they can arrange training together. Thus, the memory of Chang-hyun ends, and he recounts that Ji-ho entered the decisive match. Next to him, Han Ari shows irritation at Chang-hyun's arrogance, who believed that victory was guaranteed with his strategy. At that moment, Professor Yoon Tae-in enters the club room, apologizes for the delay, and announces that he has an announcement. With a smile on his face, he announces that from that day on, they will be able to practice in the room until the evening study hours. The news is received with great celebration. Soon after, the professor reveals the condition that if grades drop on the next test, everything will return to how it was before. To avoid problems, he informs that everyone will have 1 hour of remedial classes after regular classes end. He further adds that if they do not pay attention in the extra classes, they will not be able to participate in the training. Next, Yoon Tae-in informs Soyeon and Chang-hyun that they can go to tutoring after the remedial classes, and the two agree. Shortly after, Chang-hyun calls everyone's attention and states that he has prepared something for the next match. Taking the floor, he begins to explain that the victory earned 3 points, but they discovered that Pagak High played without their apprentices. At that moment, he emphasizes that they played well, but they also had luck, as only the captain and the healer were second-year students. The conversation then turns to Jin Young, who is called to the center of the discussion. When praised for performing well against the opposing captain, he tries to hide his joy while imagining himself in heroic poses. Next, Chang-hyun reveals the team's new strategy, which will focus on playing around Ji-ho or Han Ari, depending on who is on the field. Soon after, Sung Ji-ho smiles upon hearing that Jin Young's role will be the most important within the new game plan. Still, Chang-hyun warns him, reminding him that he needs to keep in mind that if he fails, the whole team collapses with him. With determination, Jin Young accepts the responsibility and confirms that he understands the message. Next, Sung Ji-ho directly asks him if he intends to stay on the team. The boy replies that he would like the team to continue with him, while Shin Woo-jin accuses him of using tutoring as an excuse. The tension in the room rises, leaving Han Ari visibly pleased with the situation. Finally, Chang-hyun states that he will do both, since he cannot play and wants to continue helping the team. He then declares that he will remain in charge of the strategies and asks to be informed of any problems. With irony, Han Ari reminds him that he always told her to quit the club, but she agrees with the decision. However, Chang-hyun completely ignores the comment and turns his attention back to Ji-ho, leaving the girl irritated. Soon after, he offers a borrowed computer for the boy to play ranked matches and show his true skills. The sudden proposal leaves Sung Ji-ho completely confused, not understanding what is happening. Next, Cha-hyun places a laptop on the table and asks if he knows the YouTuber Europe and the professional player Lee Jin-ae. Upon hearing the names, Han Ari immediately recognizes the identity of the professional player she was thinking of. With that, Chang-hyun reveals that both want to see him play immediately, if he is interested. The surprising revelation leaves Han Ari completely paralyzed and unresponsive to the news. Although he was at home, Sung Ji-ho doubts that the game can run on the device. As soon as the game starts working, he is completely shocked by the unexpected result. Because of this, he says goodbye to his old computer, which can finally rest. 2 hours later, during a normal match, the young man pushes himself to be even faster. Even moving at high speed, he keeps repeating that he needs to be quicker. He soon realizes that the level of the opponents is very low, and that it is not enough for his training. For this reason, he continues playing and racking up victory after victory without any difficulty. After a long winning streak, his character finally reaches the maximum level. With the maximum level achieved, he celebrates for finally being able to play ranked matches. Meanwhile, Han-Ari remains in her room, remembering the professional player Lee Jin-ae. The memory makes her question whether her friend's performance was really superior to that of the professional. At that moment, the scene of Chang Hyun's proposal returns to her mind, reinforcing the importance of the moment. Back at the club, Soyeon's surprised reaction highlights that Lee Jin-ae is the captain of the national swordress team. Next to her, Jin Young maintains an expression of total disbelief at the news. In that moment, Han-Ari remains paralyzed, simply absorbing the information she has just heard. With a serious look, Chan Hyun confirms that the famous player is currently ranked number 1 in swordress. Soon after, Professor Yoon Tae-in asks him to explain the situation in detail, and the young man apologizes for having gotten carried away earlier. After that, he begins to recount that, aside from the graphics, there was a game identical to swordress called One Sword. He reveals that Lee Jin-ae, the undefeated player in the Sword League, has always been the second-ranked player in One Sword. He then explains that since the introduction of the ranking system, one player has remained at the top the entire time. With that, he points out and reveals that the number 1 player in the old game was Sung Ji-ho. In response to everyone's reaction, he asks if the news is really that surprising. Then, he states that since everyone has played with him, they should have noticed his skill level. Upon hearing the explanation, Shin Woo-jin finally understands the origin of such talent. With his arms crossed, he admits that all this time he thought Ji-ho was just a genius. Shortly after, the boy questions him about how he discovered Gyurup and Lee Jin-ae's interest. Chan Hyun reveals that he overheard the conversation by chance while going to the bathroom after the 4th round against Pagak High. He then apologizes and says he didn't intend to share anything, leaving everyone surprised. To conclude, he states that as a team, they need to share this kind of information. After the revelation, Han-Ari remains silent, processing the information with a distant look. In a memory, she reflects in her room that she knew he was special, but never imagined he was better than Jin-ae. Finally, she opens Sung Ji-ho's old player profile, under the name Spiro. Due to her growing curiosity, Han-Ari wonders what his playing style was like in the past. Sitting in front of the computer, she begins to watch one of the boy's old matches. The skill demonstrated in the video leaves her completely shocked, to the point of exclaiming that it was insane. During the match, she notices that he checked his surroundings at an incredible speed, even in combat. She soon understands that in a zero-gravity map, he accelerated his movement by up to 3 times, which explains his motion sickness. Next, she starts analyzing the replays of the previous day's practice match. Upon seeing Jin Young's death, she tries to understand what her teammate did to be defeated. The scene shows Ji-ho's character advancing against an opponent on the battlefield. With that, the basic skill called Spark is activated for the attack. The analysis of the play makes her understand the reason behind her teammate's defeat. The replay reveals that the strike was so precise that the player Deeks arrived too late to help. With this new discovery, the young woman begins to reflect on all the times she played alongside him. While analyzing the plays, she realizes that her partner always created one-on-one situations for her to attack freely. A scene from the match shows his character in the midst of an intense battle against opponents. With that, Ari realizes how much effort he put in to reach that level of skill. The discovery makes her question her own dedication and what she needs to do to improve. She then looks at her keyboard and then at her own hands, reflecting on her journey. Frustration takes over, and she lowers her head onto the computer desk. Soon after, she runs her hands through her hair, searching for a solution to her new uncertainties. Upon grabbing a wrist guard, she concludes that there are many people better than her in the game. With the accessory in hand, she finally realizes that what she lacked was leadership. Elsewhere, Ji-ho reflects that his ranked matches have been postponed due to training. As soon as the search for a match begins, he wonders if he will be able to be number 1 again. Right at the start, the new teammates complain about his character choice. Faced with the team composition of 2 DPS and a healer, he analyzes the situation. With that, he decides that he just needs to take on the tank role to balance the team. The final formation becomes 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS against the opposing team. As soon as the match started, the player used his counterattack skill to force the advance of the opposing tank. With the enemy advancing, he quickly dodged to prevent the DPS from escaping. With that, the opponent was knocked to the ground, causing the tank to retreat towards him. Taking the chance, he launched a direct attack on the defenseless opponent. As the tank shifted focus to the allies, his character repositioned in the air. He soon prepared to attack the enemy, who was completely exposed by turning their back. Then, A strike was launched and hit the opponent squarely. The play was so precise that the attack managed to hit both rivals at the same time. Because of this incredible performance, the other players accused him of using hacks in the match chat. Even with victory assured, he continued practicing to get used to the new plays in real games. Elsewhere, Jin Yong was playing in a gaming cafe. Next to him, Shin Woo-jin was so focused that he looked ready to kill someone. With that, he turned his attention to the keyboard, determined to train with the same intensity as Sung Ji-ho. Soon, everyone's concentration was interrupted when the staff announced that it was already 10 at night, and they needed to leave. In the kitchen of her house, Soyeon was peeling an apple. With her head resting on the table, her younger sister called her. Then, the girl asked if something good had happened for her to seem so cheerful. Without stopping what she was doing, she confirmed with a smile that something good indeed happened. Shortly after, she explained that she felt she had gotten much closer to her friends from the club. Meanwhile, at Chang Hyun's house, the night was going much more productively. Sitting at his desk, he was talking on the phone and stating that the other party didn't care about the details. While jotting down notes in a notebook, he asked how long it would take to prepare everything. With that, he assured that he would get in touch as soon as he had confirmation. Soon after, the call ended with a thank you to Girup for his work. During a match, the enemy team revealed a formation with a tank, a healer, 2 DPS, and a Saigon. In his notes, Ji-ho analyzed that the key to victory would be to neutralize the opposing Saigon. With that, he suggested in the match chat that he could take on the tank role with his character. The proposal was met with skepticism and complaints from the other players, who accused him of being a troll. Faced with the criticism, he simply listened to the negative comments in silence. Still not understanding the reaction, he tried to convince himself that his character was good enough. Soon after, he pleaded in the chat to let him try, promising to focus on the Saigon and play whatever they wanted in the next round. After seeing his high win rate, the players agreed, and he prepared to show everyone his potential. In front of his allies, the character positioned himself in front, while promising to protect everyone. The enemy team advanced quickly, taking advantage of the fact that the opposing healer could also act as a tank. As the enemy approached, he thought their formation could be circumvented if they managed to isolate the Saigon. Soon after, he predicted that the enemy would use the Mad Mix ability to attack continuously. As soon as the Saigon attacked, he used his ability to counterattack at the same moment. Even landing the blow, he realized that the opponent was not shaken by the impact. With that, he recognized that there were many skilled players in ranked matches. Suddenly, the opponent disappeared in a cloud of smoke, leaving the battlefield empty. Soon after, the Saigon appeared ready to strike him. After the blow, his health bar decreased slightly. Without hesitation, the opponent prepared to use their ultimate ability. However, he did not expect that the game addict would finish him off quickly. After the confrontation, the player, Azer, was finally defeated, and his character stood over him. With the victory, Ji-ho admitted that this had been the best Saigon player he had ever faced. He then tried to find the shortcut key to show respect to the opponent. By mistake, his character began to crouch repeatedly over the fallen opponent's body. Soon after, he apologized and quickly stepped away from the scene. Back in his room, he sighed in relief upon seeing the match progress bar on the screen. Then, he received a message notification from Shin Jae-duk. At school, Jin Young was leaning against the lockers while other students laughed at him. With that, he lamented being the only one always caught by the teachers. Even when they were talking together, only he took the blame. With a wink and a thumbs up, Ji-ho replied that his friend should have paid more attention. Jin Young then looked at his planner, where he had circled Sung Ji-ho's solar plexus as a target on his to-do list. His attention turned to Shin Woo-jin, who was sleeping at his desk, and he wondered why the classmate never got into trouble. Suddenly, Ji-ho wondered why Shin Woo-jin was called by the nickname Local. A memory showed the two being kicked out of the gaming cafe the night before, while the classmate complained about having nowhere to go. At that moment, Jin Young agreed with the idea that students shouldn't be out so late. Soon after, he noticed something strange and asked if Woo-jin had gone there right after class ended. Not understanding the question, the boy asked where else a student should go after school. In response, Jin Young simply nodded and gave up trying to argue with him. The scene then shifted to the school cafeteria during lunchtime. While eating, he explained that his classmate always went to the internet cafe when there was no club practice. Unable to contain himself, Jin Young directly asked Woo-jin why he had the nickname Local. The question left the boy confused, as he finally understood that the nickname referred to him. Jin Young then wanted to know if he was a delinquent, mentioning the rumors about his reputation in the neighborhood. In response, Woo-jin denied the accusation and said he wasn't a kid to be a delinquent. Even so, Jin Young insisted on the topic, pointing to his appearance and scars as proof, while the other asked him to stop. Without giving a definitive answer, the classmate merely said he had never been provoked and therefore didn't know if he was good at fighting. The disappointing answer left Jin Young completely shocked and speechless. Soon after, Ji-ho fell to the ground after choking on his noodles from eating too quickly. Moments later, upon arriving at the club room, Han-ari, Soyeon, and Chan-hyun were surprised to see that everyone was already there. Han-ari then explained that, since they had had extra classes the day before, the teacher had let them start practicing. Next, Soyeon noticed that Jin-young looked sad and asked what was wrong with him. Shortly after, Changhyun asked everyone if they had done well after yesterday's classes. A memory showed Jin-young and Jiho shocked to see the whole team arrive at the internet cafe to practice. Han-ari commented that she had told everyone to rest, but no one had listened to her. With a smile, Soyeon suggested that, since they were all gathered, they could take the opportunity to train. The internet cafe employee, happy with so many customers, simply watched the group with satisfaction. Jiho bowed to Han-ari and apologized for not having told her about his past. With a touch on his shoulder, she said he didn't need to apologize for that. She then commented with a sidelong glance that they also hadn't asked anything about the subject. The interaction between the two was observed by Woo Jin and Soyeon from their computers. With that, Soyeon said she would also hesitate to share. The boy explained that what Changhyun said was true and that he didn't feel as good as before. He then promised to do his best to finish his ranking matches quickly. Han-ari then reassured him, saying that Changhyun was just a rich, spoiled kid and that not everyone thought like him. With a kind look, she stated that the other team members probably didn't care about that. With sympathy, she thanked him for the team's honesty and support. With the atmosphere lighter, Han-ari called everyone to start the day's practice. Jin-young and Jiho just watched the scene, ready for the start of training. Back at the club, Changhyun asked about his classmates' ranking matches. Then, Jiho turned around and said he was ready to play, asking to borrow the laptop for a few more days. Changhyun agreed to let him use the device and announced that he would start explaining about the next opponent. He soon revealed that the opponent this time would be Banghoon Technical School. He explained that the level of school competitions had increased and that they were the strongest team of the last year. The biggest concern, according to him, was that the opposing strategy was very similar to their own, focused on direct combat. He then detailed that even the healers and support classes were forced to fight up close. Their main tactic consisted of using the healer in front to force one-on-one fights and nullify enemy strategies. With that, he concluded that if the team played as usual, the match would be an extremely close battle. Suddenly, everyone's attention was diverted. All the team members turned silently to observe the newcomer. A young man with blonde hair introduced himself with a big smile as Gyurup, a Swordrush streamer. As soon as he arrived, Gyurup asked if it would be a bother if he started filming immediately. With a serious expression, Changhyun asked the streamer to first explain the reason for his visit. The blonde laughed, saying it was a joke, and revealed that he came to see the Spiro expert. While everyone wondered who that could be, he turned to observe the team members. At that moment, he grabbed Jiho's hand and congratulated him on the match against Yeongju School. Soon after, he asked him about his ability to play with other characters. The boy simply observed him in silence, surprised by the direct approach. In the background, Changhyun explained to Han-ari that Gyurup had obtained permission to enter after promising a donation to the school. With that, the visitor mentioned that he had also prepared a small gift for them. He then made a call and asked for the delivery to come into the room. Suddenly, several delivery people appeared carrying large boxes. All the members of the esports club were shocked by the unexpected scene. The streamer revealed that the gifts were new equipment so they could train without worries. Finally, he showed his channel on his phone and invited Jiho to make a spectacular debut on his stream. Thus, Han-ari asked if they were receiving everything for free, and Chahyun confirmed the information. With that, Soyeon commented on how Jiho must be amazing, while the president worried about the possibility of him being taken by another team. Changhyun simply reinforced that the boy's level was very high, and it would be difficult to prevent him from accepting the offer. At that moment, the door opened and Gyurup entered with Jiho, commenting on how stubborn the boy was. Soon after, he announced that he wanted to see the team until the end and would make his decision after hearing everyone's opinion. The visitor then approached and added that he had heard their placement matches had not yet finished. He quickly stated that there would be no problem streaming the matches, as they were individual. With that, he got excited about the idea of showcasing a player with a high win rate using a weak character. The other club members simply watched him in silence as he praised his thumbnail creator. The streamer then suggested that they could cover Jiho's face and use an aggressive title for the video. In an instant, he opened his arms and declared that Jiho would become a YouTube star. Turning to the others, Gyurup offered them the chance to be friends with a future celebrity. The entire team remained silent, processing the visitor's extravagant proposal. Suddenly, Gyurup's watch beeped, reminding him of his next appointment. With a smile, he thanked them for the reception and said he hoped they would make good use of the gift before saying goodbye. Before leaving, Gyurup also asked them to subscribe to his channel, also known as Manhwa Outpost. Soon after, Jiho commented that the streamer was good at talking without giving anyone a chance to respond. With conviction, he declared that his focus was on the school competition and that he wanted results as a team, not individually. Meanwhile, Jin-young suggested that he participate in the stream, since he would need to play the matches anyway. The idea, however, irritated Jiho, as it sounded like it insinuated that he wasn't good at anything else. Sitting at one of the computers, Shin Woo-jin simply said that life was his and he could do whatever he wanted. Calmly, Han-ari and Soyeon thanked their colleague for thinking of them and asked him to reflect on the matter peacefully. With the deadlock resolved, Chanhyun announced that he would finish talking about their upcoming opponents from Banghoon School. He then explained that, despite the advantage in individual duels, the other teams had struggled for a specific reason. While drawing on the whiteboard, he revealed that their strategies were surprisingly well formulated and detailed. He then commented that he used to think Shin Woojin was just impulsive, but now understood why he advanced as a healer. He soon pointed out on the board that the Banghoon teams sometimes positioned their healer aggressively at the front of the formation. Based on the number of enemies approaching, they left the healer exposed to draw them in. Shortly after, the backline members would emerge to face one opponent each. As soon as this formation was established, the one-on-one situation began for everyone. Before the opposing team could retreat to help someone, the Banghoon team advanced to intercept them. However, the most surprising part of the tactic was yet to come. As he drew a large circle on the board, Chanhyun explained that their focus was to fight within the healer's range. Thus, while the main DPS finished off their opponent, the other players merely limited the damage they received. This tactic resulted in a numerical advantage for the team, almost like a football strategy. He then explained that, unlike professional leagues, school teams have a significant skill gap between players. He also demonstrated that they themselves struggled to cover someone else's role in a different position. Finally, he concluded that Banghoon's strategy exploited the fact that a normal team tries to fill the traditional roles of tank, DPS, and healer. As the dark image of the opposing coach emerged in his words, he mentioned that he was a promising former coach, but as cunning as a fox. For this reason, he declared that they would also use a well-prepared strategy for the match. As he walked toward the table, Chanhyun stated that Jiho himself was their strategy. Turning to his colleague, he asked how his motion sickness was. Jiho replied that 2 consecutive matches were not a problem, but the situation became difficult near the end of the second. He then added that he had no difficulties playing alone. He just tended to overthink the preliminary match. In light of this, Chanhyun agreed that it would be better not to push it and decided to keep him out of the second match. Soon after, he turned to Hanari and asked if she had anything to add. Not understanding, the girl questioned what he was talking about, but her colleague just stared at her in silence. At that moment, Jin Yong, concerned, asked what had happened to the president's wrist. Everyone in the room then turned their attention to her, waiting for a response. After a brief pause, she admitted that, due to playing very intensely, she felt a burning sensation from time to time. Suddenly, the club room door opened once again. A voice from outside stated that her wrists shouldn't be hurting so soon. With wide eyes, the group leader stared at the entrance in absolute silence. As the visitor entered, she looked at those present and commented that it seemed she had arrived at just the right moment. Thus, the newcomer apologized for not introducing herself earlier, explaining that she had gotten very excited. She then introduced herself as Lee Jin-ae from the professional team S91. In response, Jin Yong wondered in surprise if it was a special day since Europe had just left. With her face in her hands, Hanari reacted like a fan who had just met her idol. Next, the visitor revealed that she had come to the school because she heard Spiro was there. Immediately, Jin Yong grabbed Sung Jiho by the collar and pushed him forward, saying that it was him. Due to the shove, the boy stumbled and fell to the ground right in front of the professional player. Crouched down, he simply watched the visitor standing before him. With a slight smile, the young woman said that she could finally see him in person. Astonished, Sung Jiho stared at her and began to pronounce her name. Before he could finish, the player covered his mouth and asked him not to say her nickname. Shortly after, the boy was already in the passenger seat of a car, reflecting on how professional players could drive luxury vehicles. He then asked how she managed to get there since she should be busy with training. While adjusting her sunglasses, the driver replied that she wanted to confirm if he was really Spiro. Finally, she flashed him a smile and added that she had also come to entice him. With a confident look, she rhetorically asked how many players besides her would know for sure who Spiro was. In the meantime, Shin Jae-duk was eating with his mouth open while his colleague asked him to behave. Still in the car, the boy repeated her word without understanding what was happening. The visitor then clarified that the intention was to convince him to join her professional team. Soon after, she revealed that a big change was coming soon to the professional Swordrush League. According to the player, it was a change completely suitable for him. Just as the car came to a sudden stop. Curious, Sung Jiho immediately wanted to know what kind of change that would be. As soon as she parked the car in the garage and turned on the interior light, the driver prepared to respond. With a smile, she announced the creation of the long-awaited individual league of Swordrush. She then unbuckled her seatbelt and invited him to come up and talk more calmly. In front of the elevator, Lee Jin-ae explained that this was her team's training center. As soon as the door opened, a young man with long hair and glasses appeared, eating a snack. With a wave, he excitedly greeted the professional for her quick return. The boy then looked to the side and asked if that was Spiro, and Sung Jiho just greeted him shyly. With that, the player put her arm around Jiho and said she was busy and that they would talk later. As she pulled him along, the boy just timidly agreed to follow her. As they went down the stairs, the teammate informed the others that the coach was calling them and said goodbye as well. Already in a meeting room, they both sat at a long table, and the professional began to explain the situation in detail. With that, she pointed to a poster and mentioned that the game developer had high expectations for the school competition. Thus, Sung Ji-ho listened attentively as she explained that the goal was to create a positive influence on the game through the students. Soon after, the professional player commented that interest and use of the game in internet cafes were slowly increasing. Additionally, she added that the audience for the school competition was comparable to that of the professional league. Showing her phone, Lee Jin-ae revealed that the individual league of Swordrush would start a week after the tournament. With the device in front of him, he explained that the intention was to extend the popularity of school players to the professional league. He then pondered that it was difficult for students to debut directly on teams due to organizational issues. Therefore, just like in the first generation of esports, they would use individual matches as a gateway for new stars. With a direct look, he began to say that, in the case of individual matches, the situation was different. He then questioned whether he needed to say anything more with Spiro right in front of him. In response, Sung Ji-ho turned to her and asked what he needed to do to seize the opportunity. With a confident smile, Lee Jin-ae simply invited him to play a match with her. Immediately, the young man accepted the challenge from the professional player with a slight smile. As he stood up, the host said she was eager to see if he had improved or worsened. She then reminded him that he could speak comfortably, as he had never used honorifics during the time of One Sword. Once in the game, he was surprised to see his avatar and commented that, after all, it was another person. He then explained that a mysterious user was rapidly climbing the rankings, generating rumors that it could be the former number one. As the player ignored all messages, curiosity only increased, and then she invited him to start the match. With his weapon in hand, he thought it was an honor to have Spiro playing with his exclusive character for her. Her character, Blint, quickly jumped, disappearing into the snowy scenery. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho analyzed the notes on Blint, recognizing that it was the type of character Jin-ae would like. During the match, he noticed that her attack speed was high, which would give her an advantage to retreat after her strikes. At the same time, Lee Jin-ae realized that her opponent immediately moved to a favorable location on the map. As the two characters faced off, he reflected on whether he was using mind games because his old form had not yet returned. With a focused look, he concluded that it was dangerous not to be able to position himself behind Spiro. In a quick move, Blint jumped to dodge an attack, and Spiro countered with a skill. Then, the two avatars faced each other closely after the exchange of blows in the middle of the arena. Thus, Sung Ji-ho realized that her attack pattern was different from what he used in One Sword, and that her skills had improved. Meanwhile, the player noticed that his reaction speed and patience remained the same as before. Soon after, she challenged him to block her next sequence of attacks while preparing her skill. With his guard up, Spiro blocked the strikes and replied that it was useless to try to make him talk in the middle of the fight. Thus, the collision of weapons generated sparks upon the direct impact between the two avatars in the snowy setting. At that moment, he took advantage of the opening to pass by her and reposition quickly. With that, the two characters distanced themselves again on the battlefield. At this moment, Blint realized that the opponent had used his movement skill. With a confident smile, the player decided that there was only one thing to do in that situation. Meanwhile, Sung Ji-ho simply watched her from the other side of the screen with a determined expression. As soon as her character used the water pole skill, Spiro activated his counterattack. The collision of the skills generated a large explosion that sent Blint flying away in the scenery, and Spiro as well. Sliding on the ground, the young man thought it was the right moment to use his ultimate skill. In the same situation, the adversary commented that he hadn't played Swordrush in a long time, having started recently. With a surprised smile, the professional praised her opponent and said that his old form had returned quite a bit. She then questioned and thought whether, with that skill, he could also use the super counter. Despite this, Sung Ji-ho admitted that his performance was still insufficient. With a determined smile, he stated that, despite everything, he did not want to lose. On the other side of the screen, the rival smiled back, accepting her opponent's determination. Soon after, a memory showed Sung Ji-ho training alone tirelessly until he collapsed from exhaustion at his desk. At the same time, another memory revealed Lee Jin-ae dedicating her youth to practice, always stretching before playing. Back in the game, Lee Jin-ae's character jumped to unleash her ultimate skill. Immediately, Sung Ji-ho's avatar activated the super counter to reflect any attack he received. As the attack move began, he advanced to intercept the blow at the perfect time. Suddenly, the opponent's charge completely stopped in midair, even before contact. With that, the counterattack failed, as there was no longer a blow to be reflected. At that moment, Ji-ho was confused to realize that the ultimate skill simply disappeared. Soon after, the opposing character revealed that in Swordrush it was possible to do something unexpected. With a gleam in her weapon, she explained that players could even cancel their own ultimate abilities. Next, she used the Tidal Wave ability, hitting her rival with a direct and swift attack. Then, the player formally welcomed him to the professional world with a gesture of superiority. With no chance to react, his avatar was thrown out of the ice arena. On the other side, Lee Jin-ae commented to herself that that trick wouldn't work on him anymore. Shortly after, the defeat screen appeared for Sung Ji-ho, officially ending the match. Even in defeat, a huge smile appeared on his face as he realized the game had become much more enjoyable. With the adrenaline from the competition, he remembered the excitement he felt while playing one's sword. Soon after, the professional stood up and commented that it didn't seem like just a month had passed since he started playing. Curiously, Ji-ho asked if there were any more details about the game he needed to know. The rival replied that after confirming his abilities, there was nothing else that could influence the outcome. Next, the player extended her hand and invited him to play again with her team. In disbelief, he questioned whether he could have the chance to participate in games of that level more often. With a subtle smile, Lee Jin-ae explained that the former members were now professional and active players. Soon after, she confirmed that he would have the chance to play alongside all of them again. With a confident look, she stated that everyone in the competitive scene was scared now. Continuing, she revealed that everyone's fear was due to Swordruss's Spiro. Before accepting, Sung Ji-ho said he needed to ask a few things first. Without hesitation, the professional assured him that the team would do whatever he asked. The player extended her hand once more and stated that the coach felt the same way. With the agreement sealed, Ji-ho shook her hand and admitted that he wanted to meet her. Soon after, he hugged her, while the young woman replied that she had also been looking forward to that reunion. Sometime later, Sung Ji-ho and Lee Jin-ae met in a conference room to talk. As soon as they sat down, the player asked him about an offer to participate in the streamer Gyurup's broadcast. With that, she wanted to know if he had revealed his past as the number one in one sword. Immediately, Ji-ho denied it, and recalled that the streamer's excitement was so great that there was no time for explanations. Finally, Lee Jin-ae suggested that he participate on the condition that he wouldn't reveal his face or personal information. While typing on her phone, she mentioned that the team manager could communicate the conditions to the streamer. Soon after, the player gave a direct order for Sung Ji-ho not to play with his main character. With a strategic look, Lee Jin-ae explained that the spectacular debut of Spiro should happen in the individual league. Later, the conversation ended, and the two left the building where the meeting took place. Upon arriving at his destination, Ji-ho thanked her for the ride and wished her a safe trip home. Next, the professional warned him to keep his phone close at hand. With a discreet smile, he simply remained silent. Inside, Shin Jae-duk was having a drink and spat it all out upon seeing who had just arrived. Soon after, Ji-ho approached the table and asked why his friend was acting that way. With wide eyes, Jae-duk processed the scene he saw of Lee Jin-ae in a sports car. While the reflection in his eye showed his companion, he tried to compose himself from the situation. Soon after, Jae-duk slammed the table and asked what had just happened. Calmly, Ji-ho sat down and revealed that he had decided to sign a contract with Lee Jin-ae's team. Upon hearing the news, his friend shouted that it was complete madness. Continuing, Ji-ho asked him about the contact Chan-hyun had made earlier. Shin Jae-duk began to ramble, imagining that everything would start with dinners and soon they would be dating. With that, Ji-ho interrupted the fantasies and emphasized that he needed to go practice with his Spiro soon. Next, the friend asked if he would have a match against Banghoon Technical College soon. Then, he revealed that a friend from elementary school, Ki Sung-min, studied there and Chan-hyun was asking about him. Surprised, Ji-ho commented that Chan-hyun really had a meticulous personality to investigate so much. His friend explained that the reason was for team analysis, so he only passed on unimportant information. Even so, he admitted that he felt like Chan-hyun already knew a lot when he asked the questions. With a smile, Ji-ho asked if his friend Ki Sung-min was really a good player. Shin Jae-duk confirmed that he was good and recalled that he had to insist before he played Swordruss. With that, he revealed that he taught him a bit of what he learned in one sword, and now the boy receives offers from professional teams. Then, Ji-ho showed interest in knowing what his playstyle was. After thinking for a moment, Jae-duk tried to describe it as a kind of healer who acts as a tank. The unusual description made the two stare at each other for a moment, while Ji-ho processed the information. Finally, he shouted the player's nickname, known as the best pink panties. On the other hand, the scene shifted to the S91 team's coach's office, where the door opened. Calmly, the player entered the office and announced that she had arrived for the meeting. As soon as she sat down, she complained that the coach should at least look at her, but he dismissed the formality. After stopping what he was doing, the coach asked for her assessment of Spiro. In her response, she mentioned that his personality remained the same, but his skills had not fully returned yet. Intrigued, the coach stood up and asked if the boy's body had rusted over time. While leaning back, the young woman explained that the mechanics were the same, but something seemed different. With a thoughtful gesture, the coach concluded that it was as if he were playing one sword instead of Swordruss. With her arms crossed, the athlete argued that this happened because he still hadn't found a worthy opponent. Still, she assured him that the situation was not a cause for concern. Soon after, she reminded him that to be that opponent, he could count on her. Back in the club room, Chan-hyun sighed with his hand on his face upon seeing the scene. Shortly after, he approached Jin-young and Shin Woo-jin and asked what they were listening to. In response, Jin-young said that the tutor should do his job, recalling that things were better before when he wasn't around. With that, the boy with black hair explained that he was still busy learning what Sung Jiho had taught him. A little later, Shin Woo-jin stated that he hadn't heard anything because the content wasn't fun. In light of this, Chan-hyun looked up and lamented how much Han Ari must have suffered with the team. Sitting at her computer, the girl just laughed at the interaction between the boys. Professor Yoon-tae then commented on how quickly Ari and Soyeon adapted, and they agreed that the synergy from 2 years still worked. Even so, Soyeon turned to the professor and asked if it was okay to practice without Sung Jiho. At that moment, Han Ari stepped forward and told them not to worry about him. Later, alone at her desk, she thought about the conversation with Jin-ae and decided to research Spiro in One Sword. The first result that appeared on the screen stated that Spiro was the reason the game was ruined. In a long post, an old player explained that the avatar appeared and defeated everyone with insane mechanics. Surprised, the young woman continued reading and discovered that he had even beaten the professional players of the time. With that, the club president remembered that the One Sword servers had been shut down at least 5 or 6 years ago. She wondered if it made sense for a middle school boy to have written such complex strategy guides. Next, she found a topic where a user claimed that Spiro was a legend and that many Swordrust characters were based on his guides. The information that the company created the characters based on his guides left her completely shocked. Alone in her room, Han Ari processed the discovery about Sung Jiho's insane past. The next day, Soyeon commented that Jiho was a gaming genius, just as he entered the room apologizing for being late. The boy then asked Chan-hyun about his private lesson, but he explained that the schedule had been changed. Next, Jiho wanted to know what he should do first. Thus, Professor Yoon-tae approached and explained that from that day on, they would practice in pairs. Soon, he asked Soyeon and Han Ari to continue practicing alone, while he detailed the training for the others. The professor began the explanation by recalling Bang-hoon's strategy of using the healer aggressively as bait. In the background, Chan-hyun reprimanded Jin-young to focus on his own training, making the boy nervous again with his presence. Finally, the professor confirmed that Chan-hyun had already planned a personalized strategy to counter Bang-hoon's tactic. With that, he revealed that the plan was to eliminate their healer, making Sung Jiho realize the importance of Shin Woo-jin. Excited, Sung Jiho explained that the other teams failed because they tried to use characters that were neutralized by the high healing rate of the opposing team. Surprised by the precise analysis and the amount of information revealed, Professor Yoon-tae could only nod in agreement. While Han Ari watched, Soyeon smiled and said she had told him not to worry. On the whiteboard, the teacher detailed that the strategy would be to use Ari and Soyeon to draw the 2 farthest enemies away from the opposing healer. Then, he drew on the board that Jin-young and Shin Woo-jin would pressure the healer and the other 2 closest opponents. With that, the instructor explained that they would take advantage of the fact that the defensive healer would be forced to heal the player with the lowest health. The boy then added that he, Ari, and Soyeon would use the opposing team's own tactic of staying within healing range to pretend they were pushing them. The teacher confirmed that this was the strategy for when he was out, and then the boy asked what the plan would be when he was in the game. With a confident smile, Jiho declared that his only task would be to face the school captain Bang-hoon. In the background, Chan-hyun watched Jin-young and Shin Woo-jin practice the new strategy on the computers. With the explanation finished, the teacher excitedly asked how the experience with professional player Jin-ae was. The young man then turned to the team and announced that he had decided to sign with the S91 organization. The sudden news left all the members of the esports club completely shocked. Soon, he clarified that S91 planned to send its trainees to the competition and that they would work together after the tournament. Everyone in the room seemed relieved to hear that the partnership would only start after the school competition. Finally, Jiho revealed that they could also practice with the trainee players from S91. The team continued to train while Han Ari watched the scene with a surprised expression. Later on, he announced that he had decided to participate in a broadcast on Gyurup's channel that night. After the revelation, an unexpected silence took over the club room as everyone processed the information. Not understanding the reaction, Jiho asked if there was any problem with the streamer Gyurup. In response, Jin-young simply explained that the announcement came right after all the other big news. With that, the teacher excitedly congratulated him and asked if that meant the team now had a trainee. Then, the instructor suggested that he should tell the principal and asked for permission to step out quickly. The boy agreed with an enthusiastic smile as the teacher prepared to leave. With the teacher's departure, all the club members returned to focusing on their training on the new computers. Standing next to a table, Chan-hyun began to ponder that if they won the school competition, something important could happen. Concluding the thought, Chan-hyun reflected that the others would also have a real chance of being signed. Soon after, Jin-young was startled by the sudden information. Next, Han Ari commented that this was not news, as if it were not something special. Closing his book, the club president retorted that it was special because trainees would also participate in the competition. Turning to her, he explained that winning a tournament with trainees would bring them closer to becoming professionals. However, he concluded that this also meant the competition would be much tougher. On the way to the studio, Sung Jiho looked out the car window at the city and felt nervous for no reason. As soon as the taxi stopped in front of the building, he thanked the driver and got out of the vehicle. Outside, a voice surprised him by greeting him excitedly as Mr. Trainee. With a big smile, Gyurup said he should have warned him about the talks with the S91 team. Right after, the streamer placed his hands on his shoulders and promised to protect the parts that the team manager requested. Finally, Gyurup just asked Jiho to believe in him, while a light sparkled in his eye, showing his intention. Then, the boy pushed Sung Jiho toward a bright light, exclaiming that this was the life of a YouTuber. While shielding his eyes from the brightness, the host commented that it looked like a promising future, and wanted to know if the boy agreed. Noticing the lack of reaction, he joked that the young man must be super nervous for not finding his jokes funny, turning off the blinding light. Soon, the streamer guided him down a hallway, asking if the nervousness was because he couldn't play like Spyro. As they arrived at a room with 2 computers, the host assured him that he would make him look good playing tank. With that, he placed his hands on Sung Jiho's shoulders and told him not to worry about making jokes. Then, he stepped away toward the table and asked him to warm up while he turned on the broadcast. Suddenly, the boy turned around holding 2 masks and explained that the rookie should wear one and appear only on cue. Right after, he pointed to the chair next to him and asked Sung Jiho to sit there, but only after sliding in. Then, he extended one of the masks and asked if that wasn't easy. As he ran to the chair, he asked his partner to take good care of him during the live stream. The boy remained seated on the bed, holding the object without being able to say a single word. In the club room, Jin Young commented to the others that he wouldn't be the streamer if he started the broadcast on time. At that moment, a notification beeped on Jin Young's phone, and he looked at the device. With that, he opened the live stream on the computer and announced to the others that the second broadcast had begun. With arms crossed, Hanari asked if he would appear this time, while Shin Woojin warned that he would go home if that didn't happen. In response, Jin Young assured them that he would appear on screen and that the game would start immediately. During the broadcast, the host announced that the first placement match had already been completed and that only the remaining 9 would be streamed. Soon after, the show began, and he said that, as promised, viewers could vote on the next champion that Axa would play. He then mentioned that he would explain a bit about the game and the character for those who weren't familiar. Thus, he described Swordrush as a mix of other games, where players choose between tank, DPS, or healer to fight in a 4x4. Sung Jiho, wearing a mask, commented that there were also utility characters, and the host confirmed that these were characters with special abilities. He then explained that, due to the current meta, utility characters were considered outdated champions. As the fight began, he emphasized that Axa was a bruiser, type tank that newer players loved. Immediately, the character used his attack skill, prompting the commentator to question why it was used so early. As the opponent was hit, he explained that the game's difficulty lay in effectively combining skills with basic attacks to deal damage. He reinforced that the surprise was because Axa had only one attack skill with a high chance of being reflected. Soon, he pointed out on the screen that the opponent, after taking damage, began to use skills recklessly. While speaking, the character on screen calmly attacked the opponent's back to gain bonus damage. Finally, the host concluded that the entire advantage in that fight was gained from a single interaction. Instead of attacking, the champion retreated, which made the commentator question why he wasn't finishing off the opponent. With the minimap on screen, the streamer explained that Axa had noticed the movements of the opposing DPS. As soon as the enemies changed their target, he commented that they made the right decision by focusing on the DPS. At that moment, he narrated that Axa used his skill to pull one of the enemies closer. Suddenly, the farthest DPS was dragged in his direction, causing a surprised reaction on screen. Soon after, the host showed on the map that the play created a one-on-one situation for the team's DPS. This resulted in a quick kill, narrated as an amazing play. As soon as the match ended, the victory screen appeared, and the commentator announced that the 9th placement game had finished. With that, he celebrated that, according to his information, this was the 9th consecutive time the player received MVP. Shortly after, he stood up and shouted to the camera that the day's content would be amazing. As the host started the donation timer, Sung Jiho took off his mask to cool down. Putting it back on, the boy was holding back at Jin-a's request but wondered if his partner's exaggerated reaction was warranted given the gameplay. In the background, the streamer continued dancing exaggeratedly in front of the camera. Sung Jiho simply turned his face to the side, concluding that he didn't need to worry about that. 10 minutes later, the young man looked to the side and asked why things were like that. While watching the search screen, he commented that the game usually didn't take this long to find a match. With that, he turned to the side and said it was bad when the broadcast was too quiet. The young man just watched him, imagining that he would be forced to do a dance to entertain the audience. Suddenly, the screen changed, and the host celebrated that they had finally found a match. Soon after, the profile of the player, Forrest Lim, appeared, leaving the streamer shocked. The commentator then leaned over the monitor and shouted that they had found a ranked player in the placement matches. On the screen, the names of other well-known players were also displayed in the list of match participants. With a celebratory shout, he exclaimed that he had hit the jackpot for the day's broadcast. A message from Forrest Lim appeared in the chat, proposing a 3-by-3 fight and then a 1-by-1 duel. With a clenched fist, the host shouted that even the ranked player Forest Lim was watching his streams. Then, he jumped out of his chair, exclaiming that a 1-by-1 request from someone like that was insane. Turning to Sung Ji-ho, he asked if he would be okay, since the other players seemed indifferent. The boy simply nodded up and down with his partner's shakes, confirming that he accepted the challenge. In the club room, the other members shouted in surprise upon seeing that he had agreed. Back in the room, the streamer positioned himself in front of the camera and announced the legendary match that was about to take place. At the moment the competition was about to start, he shouted for them to wait a moment. Then, he pointed at the camera and asked them to keep watching after the announcement. With that, the sacred announcement time began while the two players waited. As soon as the game resumed, the narrator announced that they would restart the match. The two characters advanced towards each other, exchanging blows and quickly retreating. Sung Ji-ho noticed that the attack ranges of his character and the opponent were identical. For this reason, he decided that he could not fight normally, and his avatar jumped over the opponent. Axa then used the pull skill against the rival, who was sucked upwards along with the jump. While in the air, the opponent activated his defensive skill to protect himself. At that moment, Sung Ji-ho remembered that the enemy's attack skill had a delayed damage effect. Next, Forest Lim's character advanced against Axa. The two continued exchanging quick blows in the center of the arena. During the exchange, the young man realized that the opponent was not blocking his attacks. With a sudden revelation, he understood the rival's strategy. Immediately, his character jumped as the enemy delivered a powerful blow to the ground. The character prepared for a quick combo of 4 hits from the opponent. With that, Axa delivered an overhead strike, ready to block the next attack. However, the rival hit him with a repulsion skill that knocked him back. While Axa was in the air, the delayed damage effect of the skill was activated. Soon after, Forest Lim's character was hit by the energy from the previous attack. Even suspended, Axa suffered several energy projectiles launched by the enemy. With a quick move, the opponent managed to deflect the attack with his weapon. Still, the character continued to advance aggressively against the opponent. The impact of the next blow was so strong that it broke the durability of the enemy's weapon. Then, Axa landed the final attack that defeated the rival. As soon as the match ended, Sung Ji-ho leaned back in his chair, while the streamer looked on in surprise. With his head down, the host announced that the last placement match had ended in victory. Shortly after, he raised the boy's arm and celebrated that he would reveal the placement result of someone who had achieved MVP in all matches. With that, the narrator hugged him and shouted to the camera that this was a legendary broadcast. He continued hugging the young man, stating that this was happening for the first time. While Sung Ji-ho remained stunned, his partner announced that he would reveal the results of who received MVP in all 10 matches. With that, he held him by the arms and asked the viewers to subscribe and like the video. The boy simply thought that he couldn't believe he would become a YouTuber. The streamer then leaned closer to the camera and teased the audience, saying he knew everyone was curious. Next, he announced that, even with the viewer count a bit low, he would reveal the result at that moment. He asked if it was okay to show it, and Sung Ji-ho confirmed that he had received authorization via message. With his hands on his stunned mask, the host simply agreed with the decision. Soon, the screen displayed the 10 MVPs in a row, and the narrator clicked the button to advance. A notification appeared, informing that the player had entered ranked matches for reaching the maximum score. Sung Ji-ho then asked if his partner was an official Swordrush streamer, as he was not familiar with that function. Both remained seated in front of their computers, watching the screen. After that broadcast, things slowly began to change for Sung Ji-ho. The next day, at school, the routine seemed the same as always. Jin-young, while entering the classroom, asked how much he had received to appear on the live stream, but stopped the question when he noticed something. A pair of friends wanted to know if it was really Sung Ji-ho who was on Gyurup's broadcast the day before. One of them commented that the blue hood and the voice were very similar to those from the live stream. While Jin-young watched from a distance, he was astonished to realize that people were starting to recognize him from the broadcast. One of the boys asked if he would also make videos for YouTube, as he recognized him from the club's test. Remembering the streamer's antics, Sung Ji-ho shouted that he would never do that. Later, at lunchtime, Jin-young was eating excitedly, while the other two seemed tired. With that, Shin Woo-jin yawned and said they should have had breakfast, but he was reminded of the bowls of spicy noodles. Impatiently, he just told Sung Ji-ho to answer his own phone. The device vibrated on the table, showing Gyurup's call that wouldn't stop ringing. As soon as they arrived in the club room, Jin-young teased a comment he had made during the broadcast. Inside, jokingly, he lunged at his friend, while Han-ari noticed their arrival and commented that they were full of energy. Soyeon just smiled next to her friend as they both looked back. Then, Jin-young greeted Soyeon, ignoring Han-ari, who asked if she was invisible to him. Next, he turned to greet her playfully, letter by letter, while the girl concluded that the only normal person there was her friend. Soon, Jin-young announced that Sung Ji-ho couldn't practice and was already leaving, to Han-ari's surprise. With a smile, the boy explained that he needed to go with his parents to sign the contract with Team S91. He added that he wanted to take care of the contract quickly so it would be easier for them to practice together. Shortly after, Hanari asked him to get ready quickly and inquired what time he needed to be at the location. The young man replied that Jine would call as soon as she was nearby. While Jin Young made a mocking face behind him, Sung Ji-ho asked why Changhyun wasn't there today. Despite the jokes, the atmosphere in the room was quite calm. With her hand on her head, Han-ari explained that the tutor had dragged her colleague to class for not paying attention. Then, she turned and asked if he could observe their practice, in case he didn't need to leave immediately. Sung Ji-ho just nodded, while Jin Young continued making faces in the background. During the match, Han-ari gave an order to Soyeon and told Jin Young to focus on the game. Suddenly, his phone rang inside his backpack, causing him to quickly divert his attention to answer it. With the device in hand, he apologized to the team and promised to return as soon as he finished the call. The team continued practicing as the friendly match approached. On the day of the game, Han-ari arrived at the PC cafe thinking it didn't matter which team arrived first. Soon after, she realized her team was already playing and thought it would have been nice to arrive together like the other team. With a smile on his face, Sung Ji-ho felt that something good was about to happen. While playing, Jin Young commented that they were almost looking like a real team. Right after, Soyeon said that since everyone was warmed up, it was time to practice for real. This would be the first time the team played together in this way. With that, they began to practice the new tactic involving Sung Ji-ho. Thus, they finished the only practice match before the opposing team arrived. For their part, the rival team commented that Spiro's choice by the opponent was an attempt at a quick match or simply a forfeit. With the rival team already positioned, a man called for the captain, Hyojin. Soon after, the guy approached and whispered the match instructions into his headset. The leader relayed it to the teammate next to him, who confirmed he understood the plan. With that, the selection screen showed Bang Hun's team composition with 2 healers and 2 damage dealers. As soon as the first round of the friendly match began, Sung Ji-ho's group advanced. At that moment, Shin Woo-jin's character told them not to worry and to keep their focus on what was happening. Soon, Han-ari ordered that in case of a one-on-one, they should finish it quickly. Then, Jin Young stated that they had decided to stick with the prepared strategy. Strategist Sung Ji-ho observed that the opposing tank had chosen a healer, changing his role. Even with the change, he questioned whether it would be correct to face the enemy captain as planned. While reflecting, he charged forward in a burst of energy aimed at the opponent. With the decision made, Ji-ho's character ran towards the opposing captain, Deeks. Meanwhile, the map showed Woo-jin as Jigra, Ari as Rapunzel, and Soyeon as Kerr. The rival teams' avatars advanced together, ready for a direct confrontation. As expected, the map displayed the enemy team's movement upwards. Then, Jin Young commented that the opponents were cunning, just as Changhyun had said. Thus, Ji-ho warned that he would take care of Kerr first since she was blocking him. At that moment, Shin Woo-jin alerted that Deeks was advancing, while Ari shouted that the target had disappeared. With just one move, the map revealed the new formation that disorganized their team. The opposing play was so quick that it caught them off guard, causing them to panic. Kerr advanced against Ji-ho's avatar and declared that she would stick with him until the end of the game. After dodging the attack, the young man noticed that the opponent's goal was not to eliminate him. With this realization, he decided to move forward to help Shin Woo-jin's character. The rival merely taunted him, saying he was going crazy trying to escape. Next, a barrage of attacks blocked his avatar's path, while he thought that this was not good at all. Soon, in an analogy, he concluded that the attacks were like chains, showing that the enemy's plan was to completely contain him. Thus, the character could prepare a final blow, while the other activated a skill. With a quick movement, he managed to catch the enemy by surprise with a strike. At that moment, Shin Woo-jin requested healing, and then a beam of energy restored his character on the field. While running, he realized that the enemy healer could not follow him due to the blockade by Han-ari and Soyeon. With that, he understood that he needed to keep the opponent out of healing range to deal with him. The rival continued to chase him across the battlefield, questioning what his next move would be. When he suddenly stopped, he confirmed that, as expected, the enemy was no longer following him. With a confident smile, Sung Ji-ho prepared to execute his true plan. Thus, he positioned himself to block Deeks, giving Woo-jin a moment to breathe. Jin Young realized that his teammate had found the best possible play in that position on the map. Suddenly, the healer from Sung Ji-ho's team was defeated. Even though no one had made a clear mistake, the silhouette of the battle showed that the plan had failed. The map indicated a player's disconnection, but Ji-ho's expression remained focused on the game. The opponent who took down the healer then turned in surprise yet managed to counter the attack. Next, Sung Ji-ho counterattacked with a continuous sequence of energy strikes. The offensive continued with a dodge to the enemy's back, followed by kicks and punches, leaving no chance for reaction. Based on the timing of the fight, he calculated that Han-ari's skills should be available again. Seizing the opportunity, Woo-jin's character used his skill and announced that he had eliminated Rapunzel. At that very moment, Jin Young's avatar was caught off guard by the attack. As a result, he was defeated alongside the enemy healer, who remained standing. With her hand on her head, Soyeon apologized, admitting that the opposing Jigra was very good. Even acknowledging the lack of practice, Shin Woojin declared that he would eliminate the rival healer. Sung Jiho agreed with the order and advanced against Deeks with an energy strike. Suddenly, Kerr changed targets and ran towards the boy who was trying to finish off the killer of his healer. The two enemies joined forces, delivering multiple attacks, and Jiho realized they had no chance of winning at that moment. Soon, both continued to follow him in a 2-on-1 situation. Faced with the scenario, Jiho decided that there was no other choice but to act. The enemy's assault was so intense that it prevented them from retreating and regrouping. With a leap, his character unleashed a powerful energy attack that hit Deeks squarely. At the same moment, another opponent jumped over the attack to continue the offensive and defend their ally again. The boy was thrown into the air by the impact of yet another enemy strike. Finally, Shin Woojin's character managed to help Jiho and block a direct attack from Kerr herself. Even with the incredible skills of the remaining two, they had a bit of bad luck in the fight. As the opposing team was healed, the battle approached its end. With the last characters standing, Sung Jiho's group was ultimately defeated, marking their first loss in a friendly match. Back at the PC cafe, he silently removed his headset after the game ended. The other members also showed signs of discouragement, highlighting that losing always hurts. Chan Hyun stopped a timer on his phone, confirming that the time was as expected. While jotting down notes on a clipboard, he stated that the result was exactly as he had predicted. Then, he turned to the team and said it was time to lighten the mood, starting by mentioning that they lost because they were bad. Han Ari interrupted, arguing that the defeat was caused by the enemy's unusual strategy, and that they should not be scared. With a tense expression, Shin Woojin merely murmured that he was not afraid. Yoon Taein observed their reactions, wondering if this was a sign that everyone had matured a bit. Soon after, Soyeon agreed that, with Jin Young's return, the team's strategy would no longer be outmatched. The boy simply smiled, reflecting on how amazing Soyeon's personality was before regaining his composure. Chan Hyun approached Sung Jiho and praised his concentration, which remained until the end. With a thoughtful expression, Jiho questioned whether their confidence came from another factor. Then, Jin Young told everyone to just watch his super plays, a form of rage bait that managed to get Sung Jiho riled up. Next, Han Ari reminded the team not to forget what they had practiced and to get excited to start the next match. Although the defeat didn't hurt as much as before, the second round began in a completely different way. With everyone in their places, the group prepared to fight with total focus on the match, this time replacing Sung Jiho and testing a new strategy. Our video ends here. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, bye bye.